Good evening. Thanks very much for coming out. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend with family, friends. And thanks again for coming out here this evening. Kathleen Kakamo sends her regrets. She's got a family issue that she's dealing with, so she will not be able to be here this evening. Could I please ask if there is a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion? I'm going to ask council to add one topic between items 13E and F called the tax assessment appeal for 101 and 128 East State Street, the Genesis buildings. Is there a motion with the amendment? Moved. A second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a slightly revised agenda. Also would like to share that there was a majority of council that met together at the NVF presentation at the Kennett Library on November 7th. There were no discussions, but there were certainly enough members for a quorum, so I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that and share that with everyone that's here. So with that, Kyle, any highlights you'd like to share?
Sure. A couple thank yous to start to our police, public works, fire, EMS staff for working the mushroom drop. I understand it was a successful event. Also a thank you to Sunny, who again is putting out our annual newsletter, biannual newsletter that'll go out in the mail here in the next couple of weeks. And a thank you to Joe from our team. So we recently were awarded $50,000, which is matched by funds in the proposed budget to do a comp plan update. So we're about 12 or 13 years out from our last one. It's a good situation to be in. Many of the things that were called for in that plan have been accomplished. So it's a chance to start over.
Thank you, Kyle. Andy, anything from the solicitor's office?
Nothing that we won't cover tonight.
Thank you. Chief Holsworth?
Hi, good evening. I do apologize. We weren't able to get a report out to you earlier than this afternoon. If you have any questions, I did send it to you. I don't have anything to add. Like Kyle mentioned, we had an incredible event on Saturday. All the officers, public works, fire department, everybody really chipped in and made it a wonderful event. So I don't have anything else to add unless you have any questions.
Any questions for the chief? Any public question for the chief? Thank you very much. Chief McCarthy. Okay, thank you. Seemed like a busy day in Kennett Square. I heard a lot of alarms. Wow. Anything serious? Any major incidents or? Thank you very much. And now the committees and commissions of finance, Joel?
Finance Committee met on November 21st. Obviously, the big item of the day was discussion of the 2025 budget, which will be presented today. Additionally, we discussed the current 2024 budget. And one of the bigger things is we are currently in the general fund projecting a net surplus of approximately $31,000 as we amend the 2024 budget.
Great to hear. Development, Timothy, anything?
Good evening. We met on November 19th. We're pushing forward with short-term rentals. That'll be discussed in January. Also, the C3 offsite parking. That'll also be on the agenda for January.
Thanks very much. Julie, environment?
We did not meet.
Mr. Mayor, public safety?
Thanks. At the public safety meeting, we covered all the new event applications that are in front of you, which we will talk about when that comes up on the discussion item list number 11. We also spent a significant amount of time discussing potential traffic impacts from the apartments on State Street. There were residents here that wanted to have those discussions. The chief has been following up on those. Do you have a moment can you just share a few of the responses that you were able to give back of what we're doing proactively?
Sure. So we shared with the residents that came forward from Linden Street and Sickle Street about the impact of what's been going on with traffic coming through, some traffic safety plans that we've come up with, some studies we've been doing as far as the volume of traffic, speeds of traffic, times where there could be speeding issues. So we've been putting out our proactive speed boards, and stationary details have been taking place up there. So trying to really, understand the concerns of the residents and address them like that.
The residents seem to be very happy with the follow-up. The concerns seem to have been heard and there's some things in process. So the feedback was very appreciative. That's it for public safety.
Thank you. Community relations, Ellie?
Neither ACOLA nor the Human Relations Commission met, but we do have an update that Jerry Franklin Poe is finishing his term as the chair of Human Relations, so we'll be finding a new one in January.
Thank you. And next is infrastructure. We did meet and really focused on our calendar for next year in terms of the priorities for the infrastructure committee to look at that sort of sync up with the rest of our planning for the borough. So the focus will be water system, roads, parking lots, sidewalks, curbs, crosswalks, and safety, and then the capital budget towards the middle of the year, and then planning 2026 priorities and specifics we want to go after the year after. So that's sort of a thumbnail of where the infrastructure committee is. And first year we had it. If anyone's interested in joining us next year, please let Rachel know through the website. And Rob and Denise are always incredibly valuable for the efforts they put in to improve the safety and the usability and the capital we have in town. So very, very much appreciated. Sam, anything on staff support and development?
Staff support and development did not meet this month, but we do plan on convening next month. And it looks like
understanding that there's a wide variety of voices, can I ask people kind of speaking really close to the microphone? Some people I can hear great, other people I can barely hear, including. I'm sorry. Thank you.
thank you.
Sam, good. Mr. Mayor, any mayor's report?
Yep. During the month of November, we did a ribbon cutting at Anseby Nixon Park for the new playground equipment that was there. The equipment was funded through a grant by Senator Kane's office, and the construction was completed by the Rotary Club, the Longwood Rotary. And if you haven't seen the new equipment there, it's beautiful. It's got a couple of really high slides that are a little bit intimidating in a sense, but it's nice new equipment that was completely done through volunteer labor help and the grant from Senator Kane's office. We did have a public meeting last Monday regarding the Ford Fly issue. It was well attended, and I will talk more about that with regarding the emergency resolution coming up in a little bit. We had probably 50 to 60 residents in attendance, and probably between 85 and 100 folks that participated via Zoom. The conversation was very, I believe, constructive and helpful. Dr. Mike Wolfen, who is the research professor at Penn State, attended and provided really good history on why this has become such a big issue now and why it wasn't in the past. Talked about solutions going forward, which were really good. For folks that don't know and have been seeing this issue cropping up for the growing season of 2024, there were no approved mitigation control efforts in place, which is what made 2024 so bad. They did test 4 new products, 3 of them which have very good potential. They tested very well. They seem to be going in the right place. One of them requires EPA cataloging, not due to the contents, but due to the screening. The screening itself, which will contain a all-natural repellent, has to be registered with the EPA. So that meeting was last Wednesday, but we haven't heard back from them yet on that. So there are, like I said, 4 solid solutions, and we'll talk really what those are going to look like when we get to the emergency resolution. I think we took about 35 comments that were able to be answered, and Representative Chris Sappy was here for the meeting in person. Dr. Wolfen was via Zoom, and supervisor from New Garden Township. Now name slipped my mind. help me with that. Yeah, Steve Alaban was here and was able to share some of New Garden's perspective on that. Certainly, the borough only has one active mushroom house within the borough limits. However, the fly issue really obviously doesn't know geographical borders. And so our infestation that our residents really experienced this year has been the worst on record. And it really is going to take a comprehensive long-term solution for that to come up. And I'll talk more about that when we get to it. I wanted to let you know, I had 3 in-person resident meetings regarding different issues. I met one-on-one with Representative Sappy regarding the fly issue and for a tour of the new building. I met with County Commissioner Maxwell for a tour of the new building and a conversation on some grants coming up for next year. Also met with the new Kennett's School District Superintendent. Same thing, for a tour of the building and conversations about ongoing collaboration with issues that are coming up. And I also attended the NVF meeting at the library. Also, if you are not aware, the borough has now placed all of that information from the presentation is now available on the borough's website. So if you want a copy of the presentation, and all of the supporting documents that were presented there are now available on the borough's website. There is a place for residents to submit feedback and take a survey, and ongoing comments can all be done through the website now. And the goal is to continue to update that anytime there's a change in the cleanup or plans. Anytime we have a document, that'll be the repository for that. That's it.
That's great. Very helpful. Thank you, Matt. Just a couple quick updates from my perspective. We're actually working with the Y now to kind of re-up the pool contract, the Y Borough pool for next year. There was a lot of flooding at the end of the season, had to close early, so we're trying to figure out what to do with that from an infrastructure standpoint. And if you have not seen, also related to the Y and Anson Nixon Park, the new entry that goes from the YMCA across the State Street, sponsored by Square Roots again, just is a wonderful addition to the town, and getting from the Y over to the park. It's just a real pretty entrance now in what used to be more of an eyesore. We also are working with another new offer on Genesis buildings, the 2 Genesis buildings. The council and the mayor certainly understand the importance of getting those 2 buildings filled and back into productive use again. So there's another very interested party that the Kyle and team have been working with to get answers to for questions and that sort of thing. And then lastly, as we mentioned in our last month's meeting, we are trying to do all the business that we can tonight at this meeting. And if we can finish it, then we'll cancel Wednesday's meeting. If we can't, we'll hold it. We've got it on our calendars, but that was sort of the plan overall for this month. So we've got a lot on the agenda. We'll try to keep it rolling. If I push it too hard, just back me off a little bit. With that, the first items for discussion are actually all the number 11 items, the special events. They're all for Kennett Collaborative. Daniel, if you don't mind coming up, we're going to address them all together unless there's any that are really contentious, and we can pull them out. So the events that we're talking about right now, and questions from council, questions from anyone in the audience, the farmers market permits, the third Thursdays through the summer months and early fall, Winterfest, Summerfest, Memorial Day Parade, Clover Markets, the Brewfest, the Candy Trail, the Holiday Light Parade, and tinsel on the town around Christmas time as well. Mr. Mayor, were there any issues that the Safety Committee had?
Now, we reviewed all of the applications. The vast majority of them are the same as this year, with the exception of the farmers market. This year, it was temporarily moved to the Borough Hall parking lot during work on Birch Street. However, the request is to keep it here going forward so they can continue to grow. So that's a change in that application. And the rest, I don't recall any significant changes, and all the applications were recommended for approval from Public Safety Committee.
Terrific. Daniel?
The only other kind of big change I draw your attention to is the date for the Holiday Light Parade. So this would be the Saturday before Thanksgiving rather than the Saturday after Thanksgiving. That reflects feedback from merchants who needed to preserve Small Business Saturday and the community who would like to see it kind of return to a slightly earlier time. So that could kind of accommodate everyone. It would also line up with the opening of the holiday season at Longwood Gardens. Would be a nice kickoff to the holiday shopping season here, and would be easier on staff, both for Kennett Collaborative and the Borough, because it would not be a holiday.
Thanks, Daniel. Any questions, comments from council? Any public comment? Please. Daniel Embry, who's Executive Director of Kennett Collaborative. Yep. I'd like to say just one thing. There's actually $26,653.75 in fees that Kennett Collaborative as a nonprofit has to raise from the community and from sponsors all over the place. So it does bring a fair amount of revenue for a nonprofit back to the borough. I mean, they do get a donation of $40,000, but a lot of that comes right back to the borough, sort of ironically. With that, is there a motion to approve all of the special event applications from Kennett Collaborative?
I'll approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Actually, I'll retract that and I'll abstain since I actually am on the board for another month. So I'll pull my vote out of that since there is a financial impact to Kennett Collaborative. So it carries 5-0 with one abstention. And these are voting items today. They're not consent items. Thank you very much, Daniel, for what you do for the town as well.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
The next item is item 12A, East South Street Sewer Piping Bid Award. Rob, is that you?
Yeah, a developer is replacing the South Street Pump Station at his cost, and it's going to be located at the adjacent to the East South Street parking lot. The borough is responsible for the new piping connections of the force main and the gravity sewers from the old pump station. It gets kind of convoluted. We did have a lower bid with a company, but they retracted their bid. They said there was a clerical error on it, and it was a significant one. So we do recommend that J.O. Bradley Construction, who was the second lowest, be awarded the bid for the base project and add items 43 through 45. We also conditionally ask that the council approves the add of 33 and 42, conditionally awarded to J.O. Bradley, contingent upon reaching an agreement with the developer of Parkside Development to pay the costs upfront.
Thank you, Rob. Any discussion from council? Our sewer group working group met on this and certainly suggests, along with Rob, to approve it as suggested, the number 2 quote that we got. No discussion from council. Any public discussion? Is there a motion to approve the recommendation for the East South Street Sewer Piping Bid Award to the number 2 bidder?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. And consider the resolution designating April of 2025 as Pennsylvania 8/11 Safe Digging Month. It's one of our favorite months of the year, Matt. Can you tell us why?
I can. So what the request was, and we've done this annually for the month of April, it's to bring awareness to the Pennsylvania 811 phone call for folks that are going to do construction. If you call 811 and provide the address, they will actually come out and help mark utilities. The goal is to prevent hitting underground utilities by accident during construction. And so they asked us to continue to bring awareness. So we'll talk about it more in the month of April. However, they asked us to designate it now for April's when we'll recognize it. Just as a statistic, so far year to date in 2024, Pennsylvania 811 has received over 1 million requests and transmitted nearly 6 million notifications to member facilities and owners regarding marking those sites. So it's an incredibly helpful tool and service that does not cost residents anything. So just keep keep that in mind if you're going to do a renovation project.
Thank you, Matt. Council discussion? Public discussion? Is there a motion to approve the resolution to name April as Pennsylvania 811 Safe Digging Month?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Forward flies, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. So I don't, obviously we don't want to, I don't want to have to rehash everything that I shared earlier. I want everybody to know that this has become a significant issue in town. Rachel, can you show the photos? These are photos of the issue that were submitted that are specifically only from residents of the borough. So any of these photos came from homes that are within borough limits. So just to get an impact, these are inside people's homes. So some of these are the traps, so you'll see more, but that's the inside of someone's windows at home. Yes, that's one of the ones. So some of them are hard to see, but the infestation was terrible. It's hard to see some of those little dots, but it was an incredibly bad year, which we're just starting now to see as the weather stays cold. This is starting to lighten up, but residents were incredibly upset about it. I received over 17 unique emails regarding the issue during the month of November. You can show the videos there on the end because that, if they are there. At least there's one or two, but you can see that they really start to I mean, it's significant. I didn't realize I sent so many into you. Hold it right there for a second, Rachel. You can kind of see. I mean, that's somebody's bathroom. That's the ceiling of someone's home.
I don't know what to do.
And it has just gotten
Every
worse.
single room up here.
They're all live and flying around this person's bathroom.
Okay.
Like, that's one person's home. That's their windows.
Yeah, just come in Grandma's room. It's not as bad. Come in Grandma's room.
I don't know what to do.
Swarms.
Every single room up here.
You get the idea. You don't have to show any more. So the research from this year looks incredibly promising that there will be tools available for people to use next year. However, the issue will not get solved unless there's 100% compliance. Unless every mushroom farm enacts it, the problem is that if one can control it, they fly from mushroom house to mushroom house. So if there is a control method in one mushroom home, and those flies flee that mushroom home and can find another mushroom farm where they can go and continue to spread, you can't solve the problem unless you get to 100% compliance. So it's a lot to do. The reason this has become such a big issue is that in 2012, the EPA repealed the use of certain organophosphates, and the primary one, diazinon, which is what the growers used to mitigate and control the fly issue, was removed by the manufacturer because they no longer can meet the EPA standards. So that was the only method that was in place in there. There was another method that was tested in 2020, which made 2021 a little bit better. However, that method, the manufacturer stopped manufacturing that screening. So they started 2023 and 2024 with no approved methods whatsoever. I also wanted to point out that not only is it a pest for the residents, but the farmers actually lose somewhere between 10 and 40% of their crop. It does become the worst months for it are August through November. That's when it becomes the worst. However, what we really need is we need application to start in March and no later than April, because it snowballs from there when you can't see them, which is when they're laying their larvae, and it gets continually worse. So we're trying to work with urgency so that we can get the tools in hands of the growers so that they can work hard. There are also no approved solutions for in-home use. So out of these four, they're only approved on the grower side. There are no home products whatsoever. So we did talk about a couple of things. Representative Sappy is, we're working on more funding for the research because that's incredibly important. But we also want them to do research not only on elimination at the farms, but also home products that can be used at home. So that has never been part of the research funding. So we want to ask them to do that. And it's just going to take a lot of work. In Chester County, between here and Oxford, there are 2,000 growing rooms. So it's a significant issue to try to control. So tonight, I'm signing an emergency declaration. So at the advice, let me just back 1 second. At the advice of Representative Sappy, she and Senator Kane would, and then we're going to reach out to the other reps, would like to return to Harrisburg in January when they go back with emergency declarations in hand so they can deliver them to the executive side and start working on more solutions. So that's why we want to push for this tonight. So it's ready in January. We need it before our January meeting because we will only have like a 90-day window to really start pushing on these solutions and getting these solutions in growers' hands. So I won't read the whole resolution, but I wanted to just point out some of the things that we're asking for. One is that obviously the problem creates a yield issue for the farmers, but also for residents, extreme discomfort, unsuitable living conditions, a negative financial impact to homeowners due to devaluing to mitigate their homes. Financial burden on homeowners purchasing mitigation things to work at it, and the inability to enjoy their home peacefully. So what we're asking for, so here's the ask. One, more state funding to research mitigation controls through Penn State and private entities. Research must include reduction and elimination of the forward flies at growing facilities and best practices and products to be used in private residences to eliminate the forward fly infestations. State funding through grants for implementing the above referenced best management practices and products for growers. We're not overly concerned. A lot of these products this year were tested by nearly 400 growers. The big growers have been very participatory and helpful in testing out all the different control mitigation. Where our biggest concern is on the individual farms where those farmers are not plugged into the AMI, they're not getting the information, they're not collaborating on that, and they may not have the funds to do mitigation. Dr. Wolfen has worked with some of the mitigation companies to provide 1 or 2 rounds of free treatment to get them at least to implement that on their farms at no cost. And Representative Sappy is going to work with the Department of Ag and DCED to see if we can get funding for control measures for farmers that can't afford it. So need-based control factors on there. So we're going to work on that. State regulations. So the municipalities have zero authority to regulate anything regarding farming. We cannot do anything due to the acre law, which prohibits the municipalities from restricting any farming conduct at all, zero. So and there are very few regulations. We would like to work with the Department of Agriculture to look at the best management practices and look at the ability to regulate to the best management practices as regulatory issues as opposed to recommendations, because without 100% compliance, it's futile. So we need everybody to participate. We also ask for fast tracking of review and approval of mitigation controls by the state and other regulatory issues, and the creation of a multi-agency task force to include the Department of Ag, Pennsylvania Department of DEP, the U.S. Department of EPA, and any other overseeing governmental agencies, along with representatives from the mushroom industry and residents that are impacted. So that's what so what I'm asking for tonight is I'm going to sign the emergency declaration. It's up to council to ratify and extend that emergency resolution. The emergency resolution that I can sign is only valid until council meets again. So I'm asking that we do it both at the same time, that the emergency resolution also be enacted and ratified by council. For the end date, I put on there, and this was all reviewed and approved by the Borough Solicitor, Mr. Karate. We went through all of it together. That the emergency would stay in place until control and mitigation efforts were reaching suitable levels in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I was fascinated to read that, I mean, the growers have the same issue, right? They live in our community as well, and they're having the same issue. It's not like something they want. As a matter of fact, they were controlling them, but the means they had were taken away. So it's sort of outside of their abilities. I just think it's a wonderful thing for what Matt did in terms of using his office to corral what's a nuisance to all of us, and using the strength of your office and foresight to do something like this. It's wonderful. Any discussion from council? Is there a motion to support the mayor's emergency declaration related to forward flies? Joel, I'll take
I'll
that as
make
a
that
yes.
motion, yes.
Is there a second? Thank you, Timothy. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. I am going to work with the surrounding municipalities to see if they'll pass something similar. New Garden, as well as a couple of the others, have already indicated they would. They're looking for a sample to go through, so I'll forward that off tonight.
Thank you very much. Next item is the Chapter 7 Ordinance Amendment Adoption of the International Fire Code.
Like Council President Norris, I request we move forward item E. We do have our consultant on the line. I was hoping to move that along more quickly.
Say that again.
I requested we move forward item E.
Okay. Well, can we just finish? This will be a quick one. Let's just finish this up. It's fine. Alexi, is there anything brief you want to say about this?
This is just the same that we discussed last month about adopting the 2018 International Fire Code compared to what we have now, the Boca Fire Code of 1996. So last month was the approval of the advertisement, and this month is the approval of the adoption.
Thank you very much. With that, any discussion from council? Is there a motion to approve it?
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ellie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And I guess what we're being asked to do is to hop ahead a couple of items to item 13E, which relates to the listing of 150 North Broad Street, which is the former police station. Kyle and team have done a lot of work to kind of get it queued up and ready to go to market. Kyle?
Sure, I'll hand it off to Justin, who is one of our brokers. He's on the call. Justin, you want to walk us through what this looks like and what the process is? Well, while we're getting him set up here, we went out and had an appraisal done, as is required for these types of postings. The appraisal came back higher than we had budgeted. So we had budgeted 500,000. It came back at, I believe, 640 documentation. So this is a notice to everyone that we're putting it on the market now that our police are almost fully moved in. We will advertise it through our printed newsletter that's going out soon, as well as our mailed or emailed newsletter. So it'll get out to every resident. And of course, we'll follow all of the state guidelines on bidding requirement and duration.
And I'll add to that I think there was a fair number of comments of concern about the listing of this building about 2 years ago. So I think Kyle and team at Realtor have gone sort of out of their way to make sure it's broadly forecast in terms of what's going on. So it's beyond dispute. So that's the intent.
Can you hear me?
And now, yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. What would you like me to describe, Kyle, or did you want me to take any questions anyone may have?
I think we're okay, Justin, unless there are questions from council.
Are there questions from council? The mayor? Process is good. I think we've all had a chance to review this. Any brief comments from anyone in the audience? Mind standing up and letting us know who you are and where you live briefly? Lexi?
I believe it's a split zone, half commercial, half residential. So that would just depend on how the new owner was to use it. Is it?
Oh, that is correct.
That's right.
It
It's
is.
half commercial, half residential.
Any other questions?
C1 and R3.
Any other questions or comments? Do you mind just stating who you are and thank you.
It's so commercial. I like to know when. Because we led a whole campaign from we being an agent from Broad to Willow on Lincoln Street. We found some. So when I hear this stuff here, I don't know when this stuff is taken. There's been no signage in the neighborhood. There's been no zoning hearing for it. And that's what comes, changing something. So every time I hear stuff up here, I just think, you're repeating stuff to someone that is not necessarily true. Because you can have things like school and certain other things in residential, but they're not so commercial. So let's not get ready for the trends of people paying. Let's not get rid of your interesting. So we have a store or some sort of like we do there.
Thank you. We can certainly get a response to when that changed zoning, if it is changed zoning. Lexi, if you could clarify that. Any other comments? With that, is there a motion to approve the listing of the property as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? It is up for sale. Let your neighbors know. Let's thank you very much, Justin, for joining us. Scott, is there anything else you needed Justin for? That's it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Justin.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's move back to item 12D. Consider the right of first refusal agreement for Legacy Fields.
13D, but yes.
13, sorry. Thank you. Kyle, you taking that? Or Andy?
Andy, do you want to take that?
Please.
So with this, there is the Legacy Fields. When the school district purchased them, there was a portion of the agreement that indicates that any sale or transfer requires that the borough be notified and be provided with the right of first refusal. The currently, as it stands right now, there is a portion of the area that needs to that they want to have used for the Kennett Trail Alliance. It's the area to the back part of the property. It has no impact on the fields whatsoever. And what the school district is doing is they're coming to us and asking us to waive our right of first refusal to allow them to transfer the property to the Kennett Trail Alliance so that they can formulate that into part of the trail itself. The area is, as I'm sure many of you know, is heavily wooded and there are significant environmental impacts with flooding and other things there. So it really is a undevelopable piece of property or parcel of land. So that needs to be done. And the fact that we waive it at this point doesn't mean that we're waiving it in the future or anything else with the remainder of the fields themselves. And it would be up to Kennett Township to approve the change of the plot plan and to allow for it to be subdivided to then be sold off.
So it will be subdivided.
Yes. Yep.
It's not an easement for the trail. It's that whole parcel that's
Like an L shape or a backward L shape, I would say.
Council discussion.
So it is transferring ownership of a portion of the property, not just like land use.
Correct. That's how they have proposed. That's what the school district and the Kennett Trails Alliance have come to terms on.
Council? Any public comment, question? If not, is there a motion to waive the right of refusal for the Kennett Trails Alliance regarding the Legacy Fields parcel?
Motion to waive.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much to the township and the school district as well, and the Square Roots once again. The next item is the add-in. Thank you very much, Doctor. This is the topic I mentioned. We're going to add it in. It's 101 East State Street, the clock tower building, as well as the 128 building just down the block. Genesis State Street Properties is the corporate name. State Street Associates, excuse me, tried to appeal the assessment on that property. The appeal was denied by the County Appeals Board. They have a legal right to go back to court over it. And the question is whether or not the borough wants to become a party to that court proceedings. Typically, the borough would not, because the school district, 80% of the taxes generated are really from the school district, much less from the county and the borough or the town. But in this case, it's a very large amount, and there's a peculiar twist to the contract. Mr. Solicitor?
Sure. Back when the development of the property was approved, there is a notation on the plot plan which indicates that the owners, who have remained the same throughout this time, agreed to not make any appeal on the tax assessment. So the question then becomes, do they even have the ability to do so? And does the borough wish to enforce that provision of the contract or the plot plan? Now, there are also some additional questions that come to play. For example, one of them is, I believe it was about 5 years ago, they actually appealed the tax assessment. The borough was never notified of it, so we never had the opportunity to enforce it. It's our opinion that waiver, or by not knowing about that, we certainly haven't waived the right to enforce that provision at this time, if we wish to do so.
So the likelihood of the borough's success on the appeal is minimal?
I think it's better than minimal. I mean, it's definitely an enforceable. The question is, it's definitely enforceable. The question is whether or not a judge is going to determine that it's constitutional at this point, based upon the infringement of the use of the property and the infringement of their ability to assess and appeal the assessment that would come up from the taxation provisions of it. So it's certainly something that's enforceable. The question is, does council want to do that, given the state of the building and the ability of the owners to make it as marketable as possible?
From a numbers standpoint, the two buildings currently are appraised at $12.8 million. The appeal was for $2.7 million, or a $10.1 million reduction in the value of those two buildings. That amounts to, Nick had figured it out earlier today, about $116,000 in lost revenue for the borough. The estimate, and it's only an estimate of the cost to defend the appeal or to challenge the appeal, which may or may not be won, is roughly $30,000, depending upon how much effort goes into that. So with that background, Andy, what's the advice of our solicitor?
A recommendation would be that we have a viable opportunity to defend against this. And if it is council's decision to do so, we would recommend moving forward with doing that. But again, as I indicated, there are other reasons that perhaps the borough may not wish to want to do that are certainly understandable, given the circumstances of the empty buildings sitting there and you wanting to make them as marketable as possible. But we do have a legal a legal fight that we can put up.
Kyle, do you want to bring some light?
That would be the recommendation of staff as well. Looking purely at risk reward, you're putting 30 to 40,000 on the line for the legal challenge, as compared to potentially 100,000 plus annual.
So you think the borough should challenge as well? Okay. Discussion from council.
A clarification question. If the buildings get sold and then redeveloped, they'll be reassessed after that redevelopment, right?
Correct, yes.
So, good.
Just a couple questions. Assuming that Genesis is successful in selling it, would the appeal be dropped, or can the buyers step in and continue with that litigation?
The buyers should step in and continue with that litigation, yes.
And then can the school district step in and try to enforce the recorded plan stating that they won't challenge the appeal, or can only the borough do that?
I believe that it's only the borough at this point, but to be fair, Mr. Crotty is the one who reviewed the language on it. I have not set eyes on it, so I don't want to answer that question specifically, in that I believe that it only applies to the borough.
Nick, let me give you some flavor. Nick, Kyle, and myself were on with Mike Karate today, and his advice was, we said, how about if we just turn that over to the school district so they can use that as evidence? Because the impact on the school district, again, is large, very large. He said that it's really the borough's fight to be had, not the school district, since it's an agreement that the borough has.
And the, can we is there anything that would prevent the school district from being a co-defend, I guess,
I can help you with that.
Yeah.
I know, yes, the school district could certainly motion to intervene on behalf, and they could certainly help with the fight.
including financially?
Absolutely.
Just a point on the difference of the finances. The appraised value is different than the assessed value. So the appraisals came in at 14 million, correct?
The
assessed value.
The appraisals came in, Kyle, am I right, or Nick?
Yeah, this would lower the tax assessment from 12.8 to 2.7.
From 12.8, 2.7.
That's
Because I think the common level ratio right now is about 60%, 50% of the assessed value. So they're saying the total assessed value for both buildings is $5 million for both buildings.
saying that tax assessment would go down to 2.7. So
For both
fees
buildings.
must be higher.
Right. So if the tax assessed value is 2.7 combined for both buildings.
Yep.
The common level ratio right now is about 40 or 50%. Right. So if it's a 50%, that means they're saying the market value is twice that. So they're saying the market value for both of those buildings is less than $5 million.
Here's that way, yes.
And
their appraisal, they're using sort of a what did the building
Yeah.
return to them?
so my only thought on that, of course, is that do they now realize that their appraised value is going to be in the public record, and future buyers are going to be able a chance to look at their appraised value?
Appraised value and market value, or
Right. But it's a factor, right? I mean, they're arguing to the government that their market value of their buildings is less than $5 million. But the last offer they rejected was more than that. Okay, thank you.
any other council discussion? Public comment.
Are we talking about the contractual clause that the borough has?
Yes.
Okay, would you reiterate that?
Well, it may have been the way that I explained it too poorly. There is a contractual portion on the plot plan for when the plans were approved that indicate that the owners will agreed at the time that the plot plan was approved that they would not reassess or seek reassessment of the assessed value of the properties. So they're prohibited from doing so pursuant to a note on the plot plan. Correct. Correct.
That's dirty. There, and there's like a person there. They did this essentially, not you. And we got them where we want. Keep. Because Genesis was given so many reprieves for that building. And they were not given a learner, we fought that. Smart Shoe was given a learner to one. And I think NBS might have been able to get it. My rest of my members will Russell. Bottom line is, you don't let a man have a property to own this kind of money and help him, and the little man down below you're running out of your town. We ain't playing that. It's not a decision for you. Let him bite at the seat of your pants and see where that gets.
Thank you. Any other public comment? So let me propose that the borough does take up the appeal, challenge the appeal, and to ride with the school district as much as possible can, use the fees if at all possible. Borough has to pay, but try to get that into evidence. Again, it's a long shot, but at least let's get the appeal in on behalf of the borough as well. It's my recommendation or my motion. And the downside to that is carrying costs for a new buyer renovating that building. They're going to have to carry those taxes for a year and a half or so during the construction period, but I still think it's worth the borough. So with that motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Council. Mayor. All those in favor of that concept?
Aye.
Opposed? Andy, does that give you what you guys need to go after?
Yes, so we'll move forward with filing of the appeal, and then we'll reach out to the school district to see if we can work with their solicitor to get them on board to intervene, as well as to assist if they are willing to do so financially and otherwise.
Thank you very much. Next item is the consideration of the fire and EMS agreement for 2025 and 2026 with Longwood Fire Company. Kyle?
Sure. So this is coming to you a 2-year proposal provided by Longwood Fire Company via some discussions with the borough, with me, as well as the Kennet Township Manager, Allison, who's serving as the administrator for the local commission. This is probably 6 months in the making. A couple council members and members of our community have spent tens or dozens of hours on this. So this is really a group effort here. The basic terms of it are a 2-year agreement for 2025 and 2026. It would be a 5% increase for 2025. It would be a 9% increase in 2026. And it would be a commitment by the borough to continue to go for grants until we're successful, and then to increase the funding to be able to fund for capital purchases to bring the increases to 15% and 12% in 2025 and 2026 respectively, as well as to pay a $100,000, I forget the exact number, but $100,000 payment. Again, if we're successful in securing grant funds to pay for a reduction that we were given in 2023. Which was given to us to help us get through a particularly tough budget. So this is being brought to you with a recommendation for approval, and it is included in the proposed budget.
Thank you. Chief McCarthy, anything you'd like to add? Okay. The chief will, and Allison will have a session at the end of this meeting to talk about fire and EMS services overall as it affects the borough and the region. Council and mayor discussion. Long slog on both sides. I know there was a lot of emotion in this issue as well. It's a huge impact to the borough, but also to our neighbors in the surrounding areas as well. And to be able to walk away after all that effort with something as strong and as good as this, I think is a tribute to the folks that were involved in it for the last year and years. Hopefully we can put this to bed long-term after this evening and kind of figure out a great way for us to go forward to have certainly one of the finest fire and EMS services in the area, if not the state, and to do it in a neighborly, a good way for all of us. Any other discussion from council? Any public brief comment? Not seeing any, is there a motion to approve the agreement with Longwood Fire Company for fire and EMS services for the calendar years 2025 and 2026?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You. Great job, guys. Thank you very, very much. Is this the contract, or is there a contract to follow as we did last year?
Yeah, this is a proposal, we should have clarified, the technical request was to allow our attorney to draft the proposal in coordination with the Longwood Fire Company attorney, then allow me as the borough manager to sign.
Terrific. Thank you. So we're giving Kyle and team the authority to negotiate that contract as well, to put it to bed, to get it for signature before the end of the year. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys very, very much. Next item is consider the acceptance of the PPCCD sub-grant award. Chief?
One extra P's in there right there. It could be PCCD.
Okay.
So this is just a little bit of follow-up and some housekeeping, reference to the recruitment incentives grant that we filed for with council's approval back in September. We've been awarded the $10,000 we requested, which is $5,000 in recruitment and incentives for our 2 new hires. So the award acceptance from PCCD was required last week. Councilmember President Norris signed it for us. This is just for formal adoption of that after the fact. And there is no match to this grant whatsoever.
Thank you. Council discussion? Is there a motion to approve the award notification? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes. And now we're on to the other highlight for our meeting, which is to consider the approval of the 2024 budget. We'll get to the 25 budget in a minute. The 24 budget, we sort of have to do some housekeeping at the end of the year to make sure that the budget balances out. And throughout the year, it's not uncommon to have some administrative moves between one fund and another fund to take advantage of excess funds or to have to pay a bill we didn't expect. Kyle, give us a little bit more detail, or Nick, if you would.
Sure, I'll defer to Nick as our local expert on it.
Yeah, President Norris pretty much summed it up for me. There's many reasons why a municipality would need to amend the budget. There's unforeseen expenses, some revenue fluctuations if tax income is higher or lower than projected. There's grant opportunities become available. We need to amend the budget to recognize receiving those grant opportunities and the associated expenses for the project that it's funding. Those are just some examples. And what I had provided to council was a detailed listing of the line items that I felt should be amended to more clearly reflect what has transpired in 2024 to date and how 2024 will project at the end of the year.
Thank you. Mayor, council discussion? One of the issues that I had when I was looking at this was and also looking at the 25 budget, is trying to get a handle on how in financing for municipality that you have to allocate certain funds. So if you have an employee who works in public works, it's a great example, I guess, Rob, right? Who works in the streets, who works on the administrative side of things, who works in the sewer, how do you break that up, guys? How do you figure out what to allocate to the correct fund?
Yeah, well, we in the finance department, we consult the appropriate department and that particular position and determine how much time that individual is expected to spend in the certain funds. The way we operate is we make most of our activity from the general fund, especially in terms of our payroll. And the ancillary funds, the water fund, sewer fund, parking fund, reimburse the general fund for those costs. But we generally have that discussion at this time of year, budget time, when we're determining which employees should be allocated and in what percentage they are allocated to the specific funds.
And are you comfortable through your time here that we're doing that effectively and accurately between funds?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair representation of it. If I think it's off a little bit, I will ask the particular department to give a little more reasoning behind it. It's also based on what I've seen as kind of on the other side in my career before I came here, when I used to audit municipalities such as the borough, and would see this same procedures, same process used throughout other municipalities.
Thank you. I think that integrity is important. It's easy, not easy, but the critique is that at times, well, you've got some extra money over in this fund and this one is under, let's just take it from there and put it over there. But if it affects someone paying for their sewer or their water or parking, that's not fair. So that's why it's important to be as accurate as it is.
Correct.
Any other council discussion? Any public comment? Is there a motion to approve the 2024 budget amendments as presented? I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Sam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Nick, for doing that work. Lexi, Kyle, 25 borough fee schedule. These are all the annoying fees that we have to pay as residents or builders or whoever. It's everything from how many quarters you have to put in the meter to what it costs to build a house or a $30 million apartment building. Lexi, tell us how you came up with the 2025 fees and why they're fair or not.
So they had a slight increase, about 20% for our rental and commercial registrations. This accounts for our new in-house inspector. So that is covering his salary, the tools and equipment that he uses, and that provides the residents and the commercial business owners the availability to talk to someone in-house, to have an in-house person to be familiar with. He knows the town, he lives in the town, providing that added bonus of having in-house staff. So that is why there is a slight increase in the fees. It also is comparable to the other local municipalities. So we didn't want to increase it too much that we're greater than other municipalities, but we wanted to stay in line and still cover our costs. We also increased, along with the rental and commercial registration, we increased the resale inspection fees by about 20% as well. He is also doing those resale inspections, so that's for the same reasoning. We increased our sign fee. This is because it was a pretty low base fee and most of our signs on State Street are fairly small. So the cost of the sign permits were only coming to about like $45, which was not covering employee time for zoning review. So that's the increase for that. We also increased our plan review fees. It's a very small percentage. It's 0.17%. We increased that to 0.25%. So that is just a small increase for in-house plan review. We have an in-house zoning reviewer, in-house rental, and we are still using a third party for commercial and residential building. And then we had an increase of our zoning hearing board for residential and commercial. That is due to the increased cost of our solicitor. So the solicitor, our zoning hearing board solicitor's prices went up, so that is to cover his fees. That all just goes right to the solicitor. And that is also in addition to the continuance per zoning hearing. So that fee went up slightly as well. These are all still fairly in line with all local municipalities in the area. Finally is the increase in zoning fees. Those went up about 15-20%. Slightly. Zoning alterations, additions was 65. Now it's going up to 75. Still fairly lower than local municipalities. This is just to cover the cost of our in-house zoning review. So that is Joe. He's our planner. He does all of our in-house zoning review. We're able to get permits back a lot quicker having someone in-house, and that is also for inspections. So small price to pay for having in-house staff.
Thank you, Lexi, and thanks for that review, the sort of competitive analysis that you did on surrounding municipalities. That was very helpful. Council Mayor, discussion. Public comment, discussion. Andy? Do you mind just approaching the mic? There's a bunch of folks on Zoom tonight as well.
Sandy D'Antonio, 220 North Broad Street. I'm not planning on selling my home, but I know 2 years ago, Kennett Township did not charge a resale inspection fee. And I'm wondering why we do charge that and why it's increased, because if somebody with the taxes that they're paying now, I don't think it's fair that they get an increase. Thank you.
You're welcome. The fees are supposed to cover the administrative cost of that person in that position. Is the rationale for it, whether we like it or not. That's what it is. Any other public comment? Is there a motion to approve Lexi's proposed 2025 fee schedule as presented? Oop, I'm sorry.
Question
Yep.
first for Lexi. For people that have multiple units, did you think about, there's some savings if you're going to inspect someone who has 6 units in a building or something like that, I assume? Have we thought about doing discounts for those property owners?
It's a potential in the future. Some other local municipalities do that. They charge less for apartments. Unfortunately, it just depends on the size. I feel like we have a really broad range of apartments that could be larger than single family homes and vice versa. So to keep it as fair as possible for now, we kept it all one flat.
Okay.
So hotels, short-term rentals, apartments, single dwelling units, they are all going to be $125.
Okay, I think we should think about that, and not right now, but for the future. I'm thinking specifically if someone schedules 6 inspections all in the same day in the same building, that is less work for your team. So
it's really just less travel time in that sense. I would say they still spend about the same amount of time in each unit, the
Sure.
same amount of paperwork, all that. There would just be that decrease in travel time.
Okay. If you think the costs aren't enough, it just seems like, for instance, my neighbor has 4 units, and so that you're asking her to pay 500 instead of 400 now. So it adds up as you get many units.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed 2025 fee schedule?
To approve.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Timothy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Now the big kahuna, our $13,615,121 overall budget for 2025. Kyle?
Yes. So this is the culmination of the planning efforts we make every year. People are probably sick of hearing it, but we look at this from a really high level through our strategic planning sessions where we bring out the community. We ask for what are really the purposes and the goals of the community. We then translate that into our capital plan, which is the larger budgets, the larger road repavings and building repairs that fill in some of those bigger objectives. And then the budget is the detailed piece that fills in all the smaller details that make up your day-to-day. That's your staffing, that's your fuel and your vehicles and all of those things. This is a recommended budget, but it's, council as the policymaker and mayor with the right to veto makes that final decision. This is your ultimate policy tool. This is coming to you after 2 years of tax increases. We heard from the public and from elected officials a desire to not have another increase. It's not a permanent flattening, but the idea is to try to limit that, to try to deal with the impacts of that. So that was a priority of this effort. The budget, we feel like, funds services at a quality level with quality customer service, even though no one quite gets everything they're looking for. So this is the proposed budget. It largely tracks the versions from October and November, and we're happy to take any questions there may be.
Council? Mr. Mayor?
happy that we were able.
Yeah, folks from the public often say things get passed and there wasn't any conversation around it, or you can do your homework. Just so you know, I did send a list of 31 questions this morning, which Nick and Kyle, I'm sure, weren't happy to see, but answered all of them before tonight. So the only two things that I wanted to share is I am concerned about the growing amount of money transferred from the enterprise funds to the general fund. I certainly understand the explanation and not going to hold up the budget for this, but the fund allocations have more than doubled since 2020, and we've had tax increases. So when I look at those fund transfers, and I am concerned about significant reserves in those funds if we continue to have these types of transfers coming out. And while they certainly may be allowable or justifiable, it does concern me to see them double in 4 years at the same time that we're increasing taxes. So we're not going to change anything tonight, but I wanted to share that is a concern. And then there were about almost $400,000 of unfunded requests from department heads. I asked for a breakdown of what it would cost to hit those requests from department heads, what they were. Most of it was equipment. It seems like most of it was capital equipment requests for vehicles, an increase in vehicle spending allotments, things like that. But it would be nearly $1.5 million to hit those things that the finance committee and staff decided not to do for this year. So I just do want to acknowledge that in order to maintain and not raise taxes, because again, kind of the question always comes back is, do you ever say no? Do you ever stop? Well, yeah, the answer is there's nearly $400,000 worth of unfunded requests just for 2025 on there. And I think it's unfortunate we can't do this, but we can't do everything every year. For sure. And I get it. And I appreciate everybody's hard work on a balanced budget with no tax increase. Thank you.
To reiterate, I guess it's a constant battle of trying to fund the things that are the priorities of council and the town with the reality of what it costs to run a town and the increasing cost of that. And especially when you look at how old so much of our capital, our infrastructure, our roads, our sewer plant, our waterworks, it's an expensive business to run. And we also want to make sure that we can continue to fund the capital as the council prioritized 3 years ago. And that has held strong. And you see, gosh, a dozen roads that have been repaved that haven't been paved in an awful long time, starting to gear up to look at what kind of an expansion we need to do on our sewer plant to have that money available. Pardon me. And to make sure we retain at least 3 months reserves, which is the recommendation that the auditors have for us to keep those funds in case of a rainy day or issues that come up. And just a thanks to Joel and the finance team for the work they did in putting this together. Unless there's any other council discussion, love to hear comments from anyone in the audience, please. If you don't mind, grab the mic, let everyone know who you are. And if there's comments or questions from anyone on Zoom this evening, please post them and Rachel will share those with us.
Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. One question I have is the proposed contract with the EMS is roughly 780, 790. Okay. Is that included in your proposed budget?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. It's the last time I asked that question. While you were discussing, nobody could tell me if it would be included in the proposed budget or not. I just want to make sure because I don't want to be surprised.
Fair enough.
Everybody in this room and that's listening doesn't want any more surprise.
It's in there. Kathleen, who passed this question on to me earlier today, did ask, are the grant matching funds for all the projects shown and how are they shown in the budget, Nick?
Yeah, if we have a matching grant, we will show the expense. It's typically a capital expenditure, so it would be in the capital fund or in the capital line items of the sewer, water, or parking funds. And then we would also show the expected matching funding for the grant revenue in the revenue sections of those funds.
Thank you.
So that it's a net zero effect, which is what it is.
Ms. Watson?
First off, I want to talk about the NVF. It's all fine, well, and good to hear you went to the NVF meeting, but the NVF meeting is supposed to take place here, not you going to it. It being presented here and in front of the public. And this is what I mean when I say we need a court stenographer, because we're allowed to be sworn in and we're allowed to ask questions. They're not limited to 4 minutes. If they're not redundant, if they're not repetitive, and if they're timely. If they're specific. So I just think you're trying to skirt around or dodge around the NVF. I see that. I think some of you have an unfair support of that when you should be fighting on the side of the citizens, because it's definitely a brownfield, if nothing more. And it's totally hazardous. Nothing didn't grow on there before the last 3 years, okay? Nothing.
Do you mind keeping the questions to the budget? You'll have an opportunity to talk later on. No, this is related to the budget. No problem.
Sorry.
No problem.
I'm sorry on that. No, I don't have nothing on the budget because I don't understand how you people slice your dice with money.
Any other public comment on the budget? Thank you.
David Baker, 136 South Walnut Street. First of all, do the calendar year and the fiscal year align? And
Yes.
okay, so it's January to December? Okay, never knew that before. In this year's property taxes or whatever, they had the capital improvements. Is that going to be permanent or is that one-time
Yes.
good deal?
Staying permanent.
Okay, why?
It can be changed by council in a year, but in 2025, it's staying where it is.
Okay, so it's gonna be yet another one for,
Yes.
okay. And so we're gonna know about what the new capital improvements are gonna be?
Yep.
Okay. Earlier, they were talking about obligations and allocations and like that. I understand how all that works, being federal government, retiree, employee. Played with a lot of money once upon a time. Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? With that, Bill, is there a motion to approve the 2025 budget?
So moved, Bob.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any other final discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you very much, Kyle, Nick, and all the managers and your teams for pulling this through, guys. It's a big job, that's for sure. And next item is related to that, is establishing the 2025 borough tax rate, which will be held the same as it was for 2024 at 11.45 mils. The maximum allowed is 30 mils. 11.45 is what it will be next year.
Just point on that, Bob, since we are not doing a tax increase, there's no need for it to be in the form of an ordinance. It can just be done merely as a resolution.
Okay.
Zach.
Okay. So do we need that resolution right now for this or not?
We can certainly take the vote on it. Yeah, that's fine. But
Is there a motion to set the established borough general millage tax rate at 11.45?
Be a resolution instead of ordinance? Yes.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And the council meeting schedule for next year. Council is looking at a meeting schedule which is very similar to this year, Monday and Wednesday, for all months with the exception of June, July, and December, where there'll be one meeting.
June is still 2.
Sorry, July, August, and thank you very much, Joel, and December. We can always add another meeting if we need to as well. With that, is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule?
Council President, just a point of note, someone on staff pointed out today that the first Monday in December is that same Monday after Thanksgiving. So if it's at all an inconvenience, just so everybody knows. We're fine with whatever, but just so everybody knows that.
Well, let's set it right now. We can adjust it in January if we want to. It's fine. We can publish it. So is there a motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2025?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And the bills from last month, Joel?
Yes, the Finance Council Finance Committee reviewed those bills in last month's meeting and put them forth for and recommended approval.
In the amount of $3,274,355.52. Is there a motion to approve the bills? Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
It passes. And finally, 2 minutes. The first one from November 4th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved. Second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? They're approved. Thank you, Rachel. And now the November 6th minutes. Is there a motion to approve them? Joel, thank you. Second? Timothy, appreciate it. Any discussion from council? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. And now, Ms. Watson, we will have some public comment from anyone. We ask you to keep it to 4 minutes to keep it civil, polite around the holidays.
Santa brings cold too. All right, I'm back to the NVF thing. That's supposed to take place here. So you going someplace don't hold no water. And that's supposed to be announced to your public and give them an ample opportunity to come here and question. And yes, court stenographer does come. Any projects we've had like that been that big, we get to question their attorneys and everything. We have yet to have done that in the last 10 to 15 years. You keep talking about the short term. Keep trying to push that down our throats. I don't care if you cut it off as a boarding house. I don't care if you cut it down to an apartment building. I don't care if it's an Airbnb. I don't care what kind of name you give on. But the bottom line is trampling on our society here in this town so that we have so many rental units. We have lost the quality of what a municipality is supposed to be. People do not even have relationships. People do not even know one another in this town. So you have a transient population that brings noise, estranged people, and everything else into our environment. But you're permeating that. You're supporting that. It's been evident in every vote you take. So it's no lie about it. And it's not just Linden and Sickle. That cracks me up when I've been up here talking about Magnolia and Washington with them big trucks that not even supposed to go down South Mill Road. They were never designed to go down Mill Road. They were told they couldn't use that. It was only for the flood that they could use that. And they're going around our blocks like you wouldn't believe. We get more traffic than West Linden. We get more traffic than Sickle. And it's continual. 4 o'clock in the morning, you can hear it. I used to know the neighbors and which people were going to work or who was coming in. I can't even tell you now with the amount of car doors and all that density you built down there. And now you're thinking about more for a contaminated site. They got a big concrete thing that's totally saturated with PCBs, and I got it right on my phone, that EPA, whatever you want to call it, the state of Pennsylvania evaluated it as not to be removed. And you kept saying, well, we're going to get it for affordable housing. Put your own people down there. Put your mother and fathers down there. That doesn't make me feel good that you got your heart out for somebody who needs help. You ran out able-bodied working people that can't get a home in Kennet. And then you want to bring your poster child out of affordable housing. No, don't even try. And I raised myself up by the soles, not the bootstraps. Didn't have them. So don't tell me about people needing stuff because you're running them out at the same time and using it as an excuse. The grassroots and the park interest and a lot of flooding I'm gonna go off of that. Is Santa Claus coming? Or is he gonna ride around town again on the back of the truck? Is he gonna be delivered in here up on State Street? No, I guess he's not. So we're just gonna wave to him again. Okay, I don't mind it, but I'm just saying, we used to have Santa Claus come at a certain time uptown. And we had a breakfast down the Far House. I want to see that stuff come back. That's what builds a community. Also, the fact is, the one last thing, mushroom flies. You folks cracked me up the name you gave them. They ain't nothing but mushroom flies, been mushroom flies for years. And they took a break for a long time. When I first moved here, they were here a little bit. Then they went somewhere. I don't know where they went. Then they come back with a vengeance. And that Penn State man is just fooling y'all. He can't do a thing about it, and they admitted it to the people down in Somerset that had a fit in them $500,000 and $600,000 houses and all that contamination. I just wanted to know, what side of town are they attacking now? They get worse in certain segments, and I'm trying to figure out why. They were first on our side of town, and Kennett South, Oak Avenue, and down on Magnolia.
Ms.
So-
Hudson, could I ask you to wind it up, please?
I will. But I'm trying to say, the guy on Chanley Mill Road, which you don't understand, he got manure out in the open. That's how them boys come, okay? When you have it out in the open. And what got them away from here? DDT. And they don't allow that no more, okay? So you better get yourself SLAY, S-L-A, that's a cedar spray. Mothballs, #1 in your windowsills on the outside. And get yourself some of those incense things and burn them.
Any other public comment about anything? If not, could I please invite, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Hi, Rick Beinski, and I was thinking about what was mentioned, I think last meeting, about how there was a vote on the library about funding them. And if people knew the content that's in the library, like for example, the pornographic material, for example, the books about suggesting to kids that they can change what sex they are, just some real garbage. I don't think that that necessarily would pass. So, something I'm bringing up to consider is, can we just have like another vote that says, hey, do you support the Kennett Borough funding the library with this type of material being promoted in it? I mean, there's a quote like on the bulletin board in the library where it says like, the library is a place where you can lose your innocence without losing your virginity. Like, it's posted on the library up there. So, if we made that aware to the borough residents, and then had them vote on that, something I would, recommend the borough would consider. And also last meeting, I thought it was kind of, I brought up my concern with child pornography becoming legal, and if the borough would do anything about that, if that became in the library. And, I don't think it was kind of a shock reaction. I brought that up, but, I look at the things that are legal now. Like, it's okay to have this like crazy material in a library, directed at kids to tell them that a boy can become a girl can become a boy. And like sexually explicit material, that is okay. I mean, what's to say that, hey, you're telling kids crazy things about sexuality? What's to say that crazier things might, continue to happen? And my concern is, I want to bring this up now because the response, I seem to be getting is that, hey, well, this is legal. There's nothing we can do about it. So that's why I bring it up now before it does become legal, which I hope it doesn't. But I look at the craziness that's going on right now, and I mean, what if a 60-year-old man identifies as a 6-year-old boy? I'm concerned with where we're headed. So I just hope you consider that. And if I'm continuing to pay for this, I have the moral obligation to bring it up. So thank you.
You're welcome. Andy, can you briefly comment, how would a tax, I'll get you the answers. Thank you.
Okay.
How would a referendum tax be reversed? Is there a process for that?
On the referendum tax, yeah, there would have to be another referendum
Okay.
on it again. We can look into it in more depth if necessary, but it's not just a simple vote taken by council at a meeting.
I think it was 600 votes or so 600 signatures the library needed to get it on. You'd have to pass a petition to get 600 signatures on, I think is the answer to your first question. To the second question, Chief, I know you had a brief discussion on enforcing the law in terms of pornography. Is there anything you can add? Was there any infractions or issues?
Yeah, so I did have some conversation with Chris Manna, the director over at the library, to going off of what Rick had mentioned to me last month, his concerns as to material that's in the library, what the library's positions are on them. And I'm just going to read you some of the response that Chris had enlightened me with, because I was not aware. So first of all, I think Rick had made a concern. I'm sorry, not a complaint. He was concerned that there was certain material such as a show called Californication. Chris told me that it's not held by the Kennett Library. It's held by the Chester County Library System, and they don't control what's held in Exton. It can be requested to come to Kennett, but they don't control the system and they don't have it currently. Regarding youth seeing other things that are perceived to be graphic, they do segregate children's material away from the adults' material floor, and that's strategic for a purpose. That being said, they also don't block anybody from entering the library, from having access to anything that's on their shelves. That's a federal law, and they have no control over that. Regarding federal law, he provided a couple links, such as the Freedom to Read Act, which was established in 1953 and governs the process of which is allowed in the libraries across the country. A lot of this is all actually case law and federal law that's at a much higher level than anything the municipalities can do or that the individual library can do. So there was nothing found that there was anything that could be even deemed as child pornography in the local or the county library system. There's a perception of, I believe from Rick as to what is acceptable in his belief versus what's acceptable in the library's control. And I think that's where there's a difference.
Thank you very much, Chief, and Andy, appreciate it. And if you take a giant step back, I mean, the beauty of our system and our democracy, to be a little corny, is that you can express your opinion, right? Whether we like it or we don't like it, we all have the right to express our opinions. And we can even do that in a tiny little government like Kennett Square. Any other final public comments? Yes.
Margaret Oplinger, 251 North Broad Street. I want to thank you for keeping the taxes. I want to thank you for that. The other thing is just a quick note on the NVF meeting. We called into the meeting. We figured it would be packed and we wouldn't get in there, so we just called in. The audio was horrible. I mean, for a $21 million library, I was really disappointed. We couldn't hear anybody. They had one microphone. They weren't reiterating the questions from the people in the audience. We had no idea what was going on. And it seemed to me like it was done on purpose. So although we could see the slides and everything else, we couldn't hear any of the back and forth, nothing. So I thought that was very poorly done. And I don't know if any of those questions are on the Borough site, if any of that was noted. Just.
All the materials are on the Borough site now, I believe, Kyle. Yeah. So all the materials are there.
Okay,
The
so-
NVF meeting that a couple of folks have referred to, the Borough had nothing to do with
I know.
setting that meeting up.
I
That was the
understand that.
developer, the
Yes.
owner. Okay.
I do understand that. I just didn't know, since you had the information, if there was any way that, I didn't know if
Transcript or
the problem was nobody could hear it. So I don't know if that would matter. They weren't passing the microphone around. They weren't doing, and I understand it had nothing to do with
Margaret,
that.
I also tried to watch the YouTube video
was
and
horrible.
once they got to the Q&A, I just couldn't watch it anymore.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Thank you.
Sure. With that, could I welcome Chief AJ McCarthy and Allison Dobbins. Chief is the overall chief of the Longwood Fire Company, but the commission chief or overseer as well. And Allison Dobbins, her day job is the manager for Kennett Township, and her evening job is the administrator for the Kennett Area Fire and EMS Commission. Thanks for joining us tonight. Your show.
So I have a question for the council. Seeing that it's 8:36, this presentation, we also intend on having some conversation dialogue with council and the fire department leadership. You have the bandwidth for both?
Yeah.
Good. Allison, start.
All right, I will try to breeze through this because I know everyone's been sitting
It's
here for some
important, guys.
time,
Don't-
but
don't rush yourself. It's an important topic. If folks don't want to hang around for it, they certainly are not obliged to, but please, it's important. You're here. We want you to have your time.
thank you for that. And I do appreciate the time. So my name is Allison Dobbins. I'm the administrator for the Kennett Fire and EMS Regional Commission. And so I did become the Kennett Township Manager in April of this year. Prior to that, I did spend a little over 4 years as the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer and then the Acting Chief Administrative Officer for a municipality with a combination fire department, including 5 volunteer companies and 50 career staff to protect about 85,000 residents. So I've spent a lot of time during my time in that municipality. I was heavily involved in the budget process. I've struggled with all of those decisions that have to be made and all of the things you have to say no to when you're trying to keep your budget flat. So I do deeply appreciate the time that you as a borough have been putting into this process. I think AJ needs no introduction. So one of the things that I think it's important to be on the same page with is that we're required by the second class township code, first class township code, and borough code to provide fire and EMS under the municipal laws of Pennsylvania. So this is our legal obligation as a municipality. And I get that sometimes that can be challenging because you have to make those budget decisions, but it is our legal obligation to do so under the codes of Pennsylvania. I think for some of you, this is probably just a review, but for those that aren't familiar with the KFERC, there was a study commission in 2016. It was then established as KFERC through an intermunicipal cooperation agreement. And the goal was to provide that intermunicipal collaboration and the pooling of resources and funds to provide that fire rescue and emergency services. The other important thing with that cooperation agreement, which was at the time, there were 6 municipalities, the borough was one of them. It did name Longwood, Kennett, and Pomoreland fire companies as the service providers. So they remain completely separate, independent legal entities. The commission serves as just intermunicipal cooperation to streamline funding. With that cooperation agreement, the fire companies did agree to provide the commission certain things. This is above what they're legally required to provide. And from my assessment for 2024, these obligations have been fulfilled. So regionalization, this is not the only area in Pennsylvania, in the Mid-Atlantic, in the United States that is struggling with funding appropriately the fire and EMS services. And so regionalization is something that has been very common and is getting a lot of interest in Pennsylvania in particular because of the fact that it's the responsibility of these local municipalities. And so regionalizing is a strategy that is really important. And so it was covered in PSATS does this newsletter or magazine each month. And so the September issue really talked about the importance of regionalization and profiled some of the areas where they are regionalizing and working cooperatively. So fire is expensive. I don't think anyone can argue with me on that. In my last municipality, the fire chief at one point was just basically like, listen, you're paying for a 15 million, because that was their budget, not even capital, just operating. It's $15 million insurance policy, and you have to fund it and kind of hope that you don't have to use it. But I think we all know that we were definitely using these services in this region. So I've spent a lot of time learning and doing as much as possible to understand the fire service, because it is a huge driver of cost. So in terms of looking at budget, being able to understand, I've asked a lot of questions, both in my last municipality, my position prior to my last municipality, and then certainly here. It's important. So one of the things that I really do want to highlight about how the regionalization is working in Kennett area and this area specifically. I had at one point about 10 years ago, I'd started working for the state legislature, and one of the townships that the legislator I worked for served, which is 5.2 square miles. They had 6 fire companies, all of them losing volunteers, all of them struggling for funding, and no one was interested in even having conversations about starting to work together and streamline their services. So the fact that these 3 fire companies have done that down here is something that I think that we do need to recognize and acknowledge as something that is serving this region in a much more efficient way. Do you want to talk about the challenges, or you want me to restart? So one of the things, because a lot of times when I talk about why fire costs money and why EMS costs money, it's because it's like, well, we've never had to pay for it before. We've never had to do these things before. And so one of the things that I found really interesting is just the difference of fighting fires in 2024 versus even 5-10 years ago. When you think about things like that I care about, solar panels and all of these things actually make it much more difficult for them to provide the service. And so because of that, man-made materials, all these things, fires are burning quicker and hotter. A fire doubles in size every 3 minutes. So when you're talking response time, it really does make an important difference. Seconds count. Add that this region has a wide variety of geographical and the various challenges caused by everything from, right, these denser more urban center to these very large farm areas. You've got more streams and rivers than I realized could exist in one coverage area. And then of course, call volume has increased. And so that's definitely something that has contributed to why, costs are going up. You can't talk about these costs and how complicated it is to fight a fire without also talking about the decrease in volunteer firefighters. And so for decades, there's been this discussion about the looming public safety crisis as the membership in these volunteer companies has declined. And so in 2018, and so now, 2018 was already 6 years ago, the PA Senate had done a report, and they reported a severe decline in volunteers over the previous 40 years. And so when we're talking serious decline, we're talking going from 300,000 volunteers to 38,000, which was what they estimated in 2018. Most of the estimates that I read today talk about that statewide, so for all of Pennsylvania, we're talking more like 30,000 volunteer firefighters. In Chester County, there were fewer than 500 firefighters who were eligible for the tax credit that was provided. So I don't know exactly how many volunteer firefighters there are in Kennett Square Borough or for the region specifically, but all of Chester County, 79 municipalities, and only 500 volunteer firefighters were eligible for that tax credit. So there's a lot of things that change. So there's a lower availability of volunteer firefighters, and some of that has to do with the requirements to become a firefighter. So just to get your firefighter one, which is like the most basic thing you can have, It's 186 hours of training. And so that's 2 nights per week plus every weekend for 3 months. And I get that I volunteer for all kinds of things, but like that was kind of where my family would have drawn the line at the idea that they would lose me 2 nights a week and every single weekend for 3 months. And so that doesn't even include all the ongoing trainings and all of the things. So a lot of times when people are like, well, you just have to recruit more volunteers. I'm pretty good at recruitment. And these guys are working really hard and do, I think, a great job of welcoming in their volunteers and creating a supportive environment for volunteers. Because I've definitely been places where it's like, oh, they're not trying very hard. But I do feel like they are. I've definitely seen evidence of that. But that's a hard ask. And I think the other thing to remember is the society is changing. So my dad worked at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. He punched in at probably like 7 a.m. and punched out at 3 p.m. And if he had wanted to be a volunteer firefighter, he probably could have. My mom stayed at home, and my brother and I were certainly not in the number of activities that my 3 children are. So society has changed in terms of just the number of demands that are on each of us as families. And so adding something like volunteer firefighting is something that I can understand why that number has declined so significantly. Okay, so you can't talk about all of these costs without also talking about the need to fund vehicles. So this is just a brief snapshot of, you know, the costs are going up. What you used to get for $500,000 now might cost $1.5 million. And I will say, like, I was one of those people that was just like, okay, like, can't you just put it out to bid or get a better price or get better quotes? This is not the same as trying to get that dump truck for Public Works, because the reality is even like an F-150, say, for Public Works or one of your other departments, there are a lot of people and companies and places that are buying those. The only people that are buying fire trucks are the fire service. So there are far fewer opportunities to actually try and get competitive pricing on that. So it's not as simple as going out to bid. In fact, it's the opposite. My last municipality, I was really horrified. We had done all of the work to order I think it was a Quint, and everything's in. We've signed all the paperwork. It's great. We're counting the, months until delivery. And we get this letter in the mail from the contractor that was basically like, hey, if you would like your apparatus delivered on time, you can pay this fee and we'll get it to you on schedule. Or you cannot pay the fee and you'll just be at the end of the line after we've fulfilled every other order. Well, the problem with the fee was it was $300,000 on like a $1.5 million piece of equipment. So at this point now it's just like, okay, well, we should all agree not to pay the fee. The reality is there are so many departments that need these vehicles so desperately, they were paying the fee. And I was like, this is like, this is ridiculous. And so that's one of the factors that I think it took a while for me to really understand, because I'm just like, why would they think they can charge us $300,000? And it turns out that there are places willing to pay that. This place does not. So one of the things I appreciate about how this region is handling it and how the fire companies are handling it is that they do conduct a third-party evaluation by an industry expert to do the fleet review. So this isn't the salespeople designing these vehicles. This is a third-party independent expert. I've definitely seen situations where you can have, I've got one group telling me, oh no, we need this ladder truck. No, we need a Quint. This is what we need. And so to kind of take away the sales pitches and the personalities and have someone who kind of comes in and does a more objective thing is something that I think is really great. And so this slide kind of talks a little bit about that and goes over just even the delivery time. So part of the reason that the Fire Commission has been doing so much planning for the capital and putting aside money for capital is because something that used to take, a year to get could now be, 3 to 4 years before you're going to see delivery. So we do have to start really proactively planning for these expenses. So this kind of just goes really at a higher level about the This was an analysis that was conducted by Amy Heinrich, who's the Kennett Township Finance Director, kind of going over both the equipment need and the additional capital needs, because there's no point in having an ambulance if you don't have the stretcher to put on it, type of thing. And came up with just idea of what would be the appropriate amount of money to start putting away to be able to fully fund the capital needs over the next, couple of decades. KFERC does their budget process earlier than municipalities because it's needed to be done so that we can let the fire companies know so they can start planning their budgets, and then also let the municipalities know what their portion is. And so this is a process that happens, the bulk of it happens in August and September. These meetings are open to the public, so any member of the public here, and certainly any of you are welcome to attend. What typically happens is the fire companies come and they provide kind of their requests, and these are 3 requests. This is straight from the slideshow that they presented in August. And so this is directly from their presentation, but again, highlights some of the challenges related to the cost. So not only are there fewer volunteers, but even to pay for an EMT or a firefighter costs more than it used to, and they have to compete with many other places. And so that's kind of just what this slide covers. This information is all publicly available, but I want to just at the highest level kind of talk about. So this is the draft budget that the Regional Fire Department presents to the commission as we're looking at the overall funding. And so it is draft because at the point that the commission is making these decisions, it's certainly too early for fire companies to pass their final budget. But this just kind of goes over, what kind of revenue they're really seeing, and certainly general revenue, which consists of the funding from KFERC, any non-commissioned municipal funding and donations. That's about 68% is their general revenue. And then the EMS revenue, there is reimbursement for transports. There are things, but it is very complicated. And the reimbursement rate is actually very low and is actually just, it's dependent on payment being received. And so that is just another challenge and layer in these EMS services. And then EMS revenue also includes some revenue from grants or standbys, got fund drives. And then expenses, right? Thing. Well, I did talk about the decline in volunteers. I do feel that this region is very lucky to have the dedicated volunteers that we have. And it's also important as we look at expenses to just note that to equip just one firefighter is about $28,000 in expenses. And that's different equipment plus any training costs. And so even a volunteer isn't necessarily something that you're really getting for free. So a little deeper dive into the operating expenses, just to give a higher level view. This kind of just highlights some of the larger expenses. After that, we're getting into really like 5-figure type of line items. And then operating revenue. So the Regional Fire Department is budgeting for about $6.5 million in revenue, and then also agrees basically that they would use their own fund balance to cover the 1.6 million or 1.1 million that's not covered by the expected revenue. And so the contribution by the commission covers about 43% of the budgeted expenses for 2025. So it's not like this municipal funding is even fully covering everything. And so absolutely what this model brings to the table is that the fire companies are able to bring a lot financially. This is the fair share formula. And so it's based on 2023 data. So I get that it's 2024, but certainly a lot of these items aren't available at the point that we start doing the fair share formula. I think one of the things to highlight with the fair share formula that I appreciate is that when you look at places where it's a fee for service model, you can kind of predict, you can't predict what the call volume might be. And so it's much easier to budget on this type of model where they're looking back to be able to understand what you're going to contribute for the future. Because if it's a fee for service and your call volume spikes all of a sudden, well, that's probably not something you budgeted for. This gives you at least the stability to really be able to plan. And so as a municipal, on the municipal side, that's absolutely what I appreciate from this type of model. And so this is the approved fair share formula for the region. This is exactly what was brought up and passed by the commission and has been shared at various municipal meetings over the last couple of months. And so I think it's self-explanatory. And then talking about that, talking about that call volume, this probably paints a good picture. So by doing that fair share formula with the look back, in 2022, you were paying and contributing based on your 2021 data. If you had been paying based on your 22 data, that might have come as a shock in terms of fees with the additional 100+ call jump. Went down for 23. My sense is that for 24, we're all also increasing in call volume across the region, not just here. Any questions, or would you like to? That was it.
No, I mean, that's a very fast, high-level overview of how the commission works, how the fire department works. Yes, sir. So I think, do you have any questions on what Allison had presented first?
Is it a good time to stop to throw out general questions about what you said? Mayor, council, what good question?
I just have a quick question on the graph here. Is there some context to the data of why the large jump from 2017 to the preceding years?
So this is straight out of the CAD system. So it doesn't matter which fire department came or how many fire trucks showed up. This is 911 calls from a resident or a business in town. The new CAD started in 2017. So that little.
Right, it's a new data tracking system.
Yeah. So the prior data straight out of the CAD wasn't available. So really 18 forward is probably your best.
Right.
Because your call volume, it probably wasn't 576. It was probably closer to 500 in 2017 total, but that's why that's
right. Okay.
Did I hear that 1.16 million is not covered by the commission? Meaning that Longwood and the other fire companies, or Longwood has to raise that money?
So we all three in one fashion or another subsidize every municipality that they serve. Because we had a larger territory and obviously more resources, we ended up subsidizing more. We subsidized a lot to the borough over the course of our service here because we either didn't get paid at all or we were paid $7,500 for a couple of years, 10,000 for a year or two, and we ate everything else to keep service coming. So
how do you raise that?
Some of it is through our cash reserves or our endowment funds, your fundraising across the entire region. Fire fundraising, 60 to 90 grand through 5-6 municipalities, which are the letters that you probably got a month or two ago.
Does Longwood Gardens help support you?
Yes. So Longwood Gardens provides a grant to the fire to Longwood. In order to do that, there's a considerable amount of activity we have to do to get into all the fireworks shows, things like that. They pay for any EMS coverage that takes place there. I think the one key factor, because we hear, there's another municipality that thinks Longwood, their residents think Longwood should pay for everything, but Longwood Gardens provided the staffing to Longwood Fire Company for the better part of 95 years. So we were one of the last ones to need fire career staff. They did that on their dime, and they did that up until we hired our first career firefighter in 2013. I think we went to full crew in the early 2020s. So they covered all of that. They even permitted their employees to come staff the fire station for calls at nighttime, and they would pay them to ensure they would do that. So you're talking just right there, the Gardens has probably spent tens of millions of dollars in employee costs just to make sure fire trucks left the building. So
Back to the $1 million deficit, what, I mean, how long does that go on?
well, that was the reason the commission was formed, right? We're going to spend ourselves out of business because we keep subsidizing municipalities.
But even with that, it's $1 million short.
Correct. So so what ends up happening is throughout the year, we too, like everybody else, have to continually reevaluate, prioritize our budgeting. And we end up kicking, many projects down the road. If you've ever been to our fire station, you'd understand the prime example why. That building's probably 45 years past its life expectancy. Too long one, yes. We spend cash reserves. We spent over a couple $1 million out of our an endowment account that was left to us by Mr. DuPont, which wasn't intended to subsidize municipalities. The reason that we started the funding initiative in 2012 was because we were going to spend ourselves out of money. And the onus really is on you. It's your responsibility as elected officials, as the municipality, to provide this service. I think the message we're trying to get across is that well is going to dry here and you're going to be in a bad way because you have no replacement other than doing it on your own, which you can't afford.
Second question. Or Allison, let me ask you, you're newer to the area. Is the fair share formula has been around for 6 years. Does that need to be looked at? Is it taken into consideration, not just for the benefit of the borough, but the way reality is in the 6 municipalities?
Yeah, so I am the type of, I guess, loser that will read everyone's DCD studies on fire. And because I was curious with the fair share formula, are there better ways to do this? This is how it's, but again, I'm always like, all right, but like, is this really the thing that's painting the fairest picture? These are the 4 areas that consistently come up. That doesn't mean that the commission couldn't look and have discussions on, are there better ways to acknowledge certain things in the fair share formula? But I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the commission, but I can tell you that these are consistently items that are looked at when there is this type of regional cooperation. So some of that is the assessed value, because that's what they're protecting. The number of the call volume for fire, the call volume for EMS, and then just overall population are all things that combined can kind of help. The other thing that's really great with the regional approach is that right now, Kennett Square Borough, if they were just being looked at independently, your staffing levels would have to be much higher. But because this is a regional approach, because I'm pretty sure even Kennett Township would probably require additional staffing if we were just looking at purely numbers and population for the individual municipality. But because it's the regional approach, the current staffing levels, they're able to get by with, because you're now part of a larger per square mile calculation.
The way that the standard works that we use to determine how to deliver service, if you did this on your minimum staffing 6. But when I factor you in across the region, it drops you down to 4.
Well, that's a little right. If the borough got its wish, reduced the cost, well, the township. There are other council questions. Are you guys okay taking a couple questions from anyone?
Yeah,
Behind you?
sure.
Folks, anyone have a question? No? Okay.
Oh, you do good.
I've been back here. Oh, I thought it was loud. I wear hearing aids and I'm loud to myself. Oh, okay, fair enough. All right. Came back here about 10 years ago, grew up with remember the old firehouse on Broad and all like that. Is Longwood a full-time 24/7 department? All manned, or excuse the word, all staffed by professional firefighters?
Well, they're all professional. They're career and volunteer,
Are
but
they paid?
Not, so I do have paid people that work around the clock, but they're not fully career. We're a combination department, which means we use a combination of career staff and volunteers to make up the crews.
So there are volunteers that are potentially there on any given shift, any given day.
Yes, most of the time they're 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And they're bunking in. So I have volunteers that spend 40+ hours a week at nighttime sleeping in the fire station just so we can get to your house faster.
Okay. And going back to the Kennett Fire Company, insofar as I know, it's still strictly volunteer,
No.
except for the EMS.
No, same thing.
They
They don't have EMS anymore. Longwood provides the sole EMS, but they have the same thing. They operate under the same service delivery model that we are.
What agency determines which firehouse responds? Because I hang around in town and more times than I can count, suddenly I'll see a Longwood truck long before I see a Kennett truck.
It depends on what we're doing.
Well, if they're going westbound, and in my mind, Longwood's further away from downtown Kennett Square.
It depends on what we're doing. Today we had a call in Harvey Circle and we both were at Kennett's Fire.
It's not on.
Yeah, it is. We both.
Do
There
we
you
house
go.
your trucks, your Longwood trucks sometimes?
So half of our EMS operation runs out of the Kennett Firehouse.
Okay,
And so I don't know when you're referring to truck, I'm assuming you mean fire truck or an ambulance?
fire trucks, yeah.
Yeah, so it depends on what it is. Today we had a call in Harvey Circle, both of our daytime crews were doing testing at Kennett's Firehouse. We don't, in quick fashion, it works is the municipality has to designate the primary provider. So the way the regionalization works, Longwood gets designated as the primary provider. We're the entity, we're the umbrella entity, we're the ones responsible, whether it works or it doesn't work. When you call 911, your address gets punched in, the CAD system tells them who to send. Once they designate the primary provider, the fire department figures out the run card. So if you have a structure fire and we say we want 6 fire engines, we give them a run of 6 fire engines. They may not all be from this area, but staffing. But the regionalization wiped away district boundaries. So before where Kennett, had 1 square mile of the borough and 9 square miles of Kennett Township, they would go on that side. We did away with all that. It doesn't matter if the call's here or if it's in Pennsbury or Pocopson. We run a lot of overlap calls, so there could be a time where we're handling a call here while they're, on the other side of Pocopson Township handling an emergency.
Okay, so, well, again, I live in the borough, so that's my biggest concern. And time and distance, and I understand time and distance equals money.
Correct.
And
To understand.
for lack of a better
Yeah.
word, excuse me. But, when I'm on State Street, right by Union, I'm not gonna say where, and the very first vehicle I see is Longwood, followed up by, okay, is that an equipment determination?
Yeah, as we switch, there are days, 3 days a week, we run the ladder truck first out of Longwood and Kennett runs the engine company and then we flip flop. So there are days where we're upstaffed, where we have additional volunteers. And Longwood will either put up another crew or Kennett will put up another crew. And they're not always there. They're out in the community doing
Right.
inspections and things like that. So
Right.
I can tell you that, we work under the same service delivery model. So your response times prior to the regionalization of the fire department to now are greatly different. I mean, we cut them down by 6.5 minutes roughly. So
And I appreciate that, and I
Yeah.
just needed to understand. it.
yeah,
Like I said, growing up here as a kid.
Yep.
Firehouse.
Any other questions or
And it's all
comments for
different.
AJ or Allison?
Thanks.
Allison, do you mind passing the mic? Just
AJ, how do you recruit firefighters? Because I know it gets harder.
so we tried. I mean, so we do community events. We go out to community events. We do some stuff at schools. We do have frequent people coming in. We advertise on social media. The hard part of it is people aren't looking to donate at least a week's worth of man-hour work for free in a pretty dangerous environment. The politics doesn't help it either. This interaction gets publicized pretty well. That some people just don't want to deal with it, right? I mean, people aren't signing up to do this for free, and in this area, it's also expensive to live. So a lot of places, they are, like Allison said, they're working a couple jobs. When I started at Longwood almost 30 years ago, like we had a ton of volunteers. Just not the case anymore, right? And we're not immune to the volunteer decline. No one is. I think to Allison's point, we do have a good dedicated group of volunteers. We're really focused on retention. We know we know if we get 10 people in, we may keep one. And we may not even keep them for a long time. We might only keep them for 5 years. We lose people to a couple things, right? Typically it kind of goes in like this order. Usually it's girls first or boys, depending, that's the first thing, right? When they get on up to date, firehouse gets kind of put on the back bumper. Second thing is college, the move away, go to college, sporadic interaction with them in between holiday breaks. And then the third is when mom and dad finally say, you got to go get your own place. You're driving us crazy. They can't buy a $700,000 townhouse. So we lose them. We invest tons of money into them. We train them, we equip them. And if we get 2 years out of them, that's a plus. But, then you also factor in, we run the staffed model. So we do duty crews, they sleep in. If you decide that you're going to get up 4 or 5 times between midnight and 6 during that week, you're not really looking to do that for the last part of the week. Or we had a fire the other night. We were in service at a call for 8 hours, right? They have to make that time up somewhere, right? So you can only push off your yard work, your grocery shopping for so long. Well, those 911 calls don't stop. The only option you have is replacing them with career staff. And, the difference of the model is you may get a volunteer that says, I'm available and I'll be home all day. Well, if I can't guarantee that I'm getting that one person, now I need to replace them with career staff and I have to cover for 24 hours a day. So either they work 24-hour shifts or, they work a 10 or an 8 or 12, which then drives the FTE up because I need more people to cover that opening.
Any other questions for AJ or Allison? Jen, I think she should.
Is there,
Might just letting everyone know who you are in here.
oh, Ken Edwards, he knows. Is there, now, I'm thinking ahead here. Knowing the size of the area that you ladies and gentlemen cover, on some of the areas that are further out, is there possibility of, expanding, putting 1 or 2 engines and a crew, say like down 52 or over, the nether regions of the township and Marlborough Township?
We have some longer, I don't want to call it strategic planning. We have some modeling that we did that says if certain dynamics change in those areas where the fire stations would need to be, there's no plans to do it at this time. The only plan we really have right now is replacing the headquarters station of Longwood on Baltimore Pike.
I was just curious because I follow you guys on that.
Yeah, we do a lot of data analysis. So we do know some locations, but there's nothing there yet.
Jen?
Hello. Jen Samuel, Daily Local News. 2 questions. Number 1, any thoughts on working with, I'm sure you have, but working with state lawmakers to appeal to Harrisburg to alleviate some of the pressures on local municipalities to fund emergency services, especially, rescue and firefighters. As we know, New Jersey, our neighbors, and California, they pay their career firefighters a lot more than we do here in Chester County. Part of that is they get help support from the states that they're in. And then second question, can you talk to us about the duty crews that you've established? Because I know that played a part in helping save a 15-year-old boy's life earlier in November with Kennett Square firefighters.
So we do meet with our state officials. We meet with our federal officials. We've had a couple of meetings with the state representatives in the last couple of months. Not to paraphrase, but why don't you? Right.
Yeah, so one of the challenges so we're the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and in a Commonwealth, it goes to the lowest form of government. And so in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, everything automatically goes to the lowest form of government. And so there are 2,500 municipalities. Kennett Borough is one of them. And there's a lot of things that would need to be updated. There is advocacy around updating some of the tax codes in general to allow some more flexibility, right? Like the tax code was written in 1965 in terms of what ability municipalities have to raise funds that aren't just relying on property taxes. And so that's something that there continues to be advocacy at the state level and some really productive conversations. But you know, it takes a lot to get 2,500 municipalities and all those state legislators to kind of come together on these things. And then I'll let you go.
So the duty crew program, it actually started pre-COVID to address trying to get into the fire station during the Longwood Christmas. Everybody's been there. So, you know, when everybody shows up at the same time, it's difficult to get inside. So we started it then and we just carried it on from there because we saw the benefits of having cruising quarters, being able to turn out. I'll never be able to get to your house any faster, point A to point B. Those response times reductions are always how long it takes to get the truck out the door. So most of the fire companies were using what they call home response. They carried a pager, the 911 center alerted you. You had to get in, whatever you're doing, you had to stop, get in your car, drive to the fire station, get your gear on and go. With the amount of traffic that we deal with pretty much in the entire region, the increase in call volume, you know, the leadership discussed like we need to take a different approach, you know, especially when people are starting to pay more in taxes, like they're not going to wait 25 minutes for a fire truck. So there were some other incidents where we saw a positive outcome because we did not wait 7-8 minutes to get out the door. So we started switching. We were doing duty crews to a certain hour a night. We pretty much are staffed now at least 2 of the firehouses, almost 24/7. There's some nights where only one station might be staffed, or you know, Sunday night where we have to send out a text that says, "Hey, we're on home response tonight." So the other benefit was trying to retain people, right? Bless you. Doing it from home response, it's unpredictable on you, you're the schedule. You pretty much have to stop everything you're doing in your life to go answer a call. Well, that worked great when you did that once a day. The other Saturday, I think we handled 25 emergencies between fire and EMS, which I think 13 of them were fire calls between like midnight and 6 p.m. So if you think about how many times you're going to stop and start your life that day, the only thing you did was drive back and forth to the fire station. So trying to retain people, you know, we used to get told, well, you can tell me when the fire was going to happen. I'll make sure I'm available. So we took that ideology to the duty crew and said, hey, we will go to this duty crew model, schedule your time, right? And we'll divide and conquer across the system. It's become the norm. It has grown into other fire departments in Southern Chester County, where they've started seeing the benefits of it. So they're starting to incorporate it into their operations. The fire that we had in Pennsbury was a pretty well advanced fire with a young gentleman trapped on the second floor. And I think between dispatch to actually getting him into the hands of the paramedics was less than 15 minutes. Under the old system, the kid probably be dead. Because about 5 minutes after we got him out of his bedroom had fire from floor to ceiling. So it's a system that works. It's worked well in other states. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We just kind of put a spin on it to our area. And, you know, I think that's the way we've been able to retain people. We've given them a little bit of availability back in their schedule. They're in station. Yep. So they're sleeping in quarters.
It's amazing. It's the heroic example of what you guys did, putting your own lives on the line to help someone out. Ellie?
So Ellie Fight, my dad had a pair of boots and a jacket in the hall closet, and I know what it's like to, you know, be telling your wife that you're gonna go and you don't know when you're gonna come back, and all rest of life has to keep going. So I get it. As you know, the money that's funding the fire company now is more and more leaning on tax dollars, and you can probably appreciate that as a council person, I'm responsible to being able to explain to my neighbors, why is it costing so much? So this was really helpful tonight. One of the things that would be helpful for me, and maybe we almost certainly need to take this offline, is if I could get some understanding of how you decide what the service level needs to be, and how you track those response times, and then think about what equipment do we need, or what strategies do we need to make it better? Because the more I can communicate that to my neighbors, the more support the community will have for having the taxes be higher. They'll understand what they're getting, and that it's being done in a reasonable way. So maybe we can plan to figure out how to get me smarter about that sometime next year. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the things we want, it's one of the things that we wanted to cover tonight.
It's getting late, so I'm happy to take that issue offline,
No,
but
I
that's
think-
something that I get questions from my neighbors
Sure,
about
and
it.
we can, I'm not gonna be able to cover it.
Yeah.
and So definitely we can set up, I think. go ahead.
At the highest level, what I can tell you is that this model, and as I've unpacked a lot of the finances and asked a lot of questions, this is an incredibly efficient delivery service. And when you think about per capita, what a municipality would be spending on fire, if this regional approach and these regional fire department didn't exist, you're getting a really good deal. So I do think that we should continue to make sure that we're educating and empowering everyone who's involved with these decisions. But yeah, I understand that probably tonight's not the night.
It's not the night, but also when we're raising taxes and that budget line item is going up by a factor of 4, I get questions from my neighbors why, and I just need to understand how to answer them.
Yeah, and honestly, because I get the same question. I mean, please understand, I ask questions too. And so a lot of that really is explaining that something that we used to get almost completely for free now has a cost, and that everything has increased in cost. I mean, once I started understanding like what an air pack cost in my last job, because they had it as the budget line was air, and I'm like, guys, why are we paying this much money for air? And then I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So like a lot of it is just kind of understanding like what the cost of these different things are and why it's so important to have them.
PJ, over to you.
Yeah, we covered a lot of information tonight. I think our main focus coming tonight was to express that we're not happy with council. Probably not all of you, but you're a group, right? So you got to take it like we get it as a group. For the second year in a row, this process was completely unnecessary. And some of my leadership that's here with me tonight will express their own opinions, but we're just tired of it, to be quite frank. We're tired of being public enemy number 1, right? Not using your comment as a point, but misinformation that gets passed around by borough officials doesn't help us with that conversation. Lot of comments, criticism on some of the things that we do. I had a borough official, telling the community that there's a lot of policy changes that could be made that saves lives, but could still cut costs. And his validation was that he runs a business. That's where he gained his opinion from, is because he runs a business. We're not a business. Businesses are supposed to be profitable, which also makes them fragile. Right. So if I were to, which is kind of funny because basically telling you to pay what your fair share would be, or I'm not coming, was a business decision, right? That's how you would with any other business. Fire departments are critical infrastructure. They're supposed to be resilient. That's why they're not treated like businesses. That's why we have a nonprofit status. When you get into a business decision and you're messing your profit margin up, what do? You cut service, you lay people off, maybe you go to a cheaper product. That's not us. For the second year in a row, you guys went and talked to Avondale. Right. So how do you, I read the comments in the Daily Local article, and it's a win-win and we compromise. I'm kind of curious what the wins were. Right. We again get pitted as the enemy because, well, the fire department's making us raise taxes, or, they bought this ladder truck that they just don't need because AJ buys bells and whistles. And you can hear the smirks, but like, we hear it, right? We're residents. We live in this community, most of us. I don't know how it's gonna stop, right? You left the commission, which was misguided and foolish. And you're still paying what you should have been paying. And so all you did for us, the residents, is give your vote up. Right? Most of this stuff happens there. We do cover these things in detail, now. It's been a little bit better, but maybe that's because you left. I don't know if we're gonna do this again. We gave you a fair share deal. We compromised to get you a deal. I'm not really sure what you compromised. I'm still trying to figure that out. We did. We actually bring more money to the table to protect this town than you pay out of your taxes. Fund drives are low, your ambulance billing payments are the worst out of all six. When you take the prison out of the cops and share. But you guys demand a lot, right? You want the service. Nobody wants the ambulance bill away. It's not just a financial decision. It's people, right? That might be one of your motivators, but it's not everything. I had a lot of questions about what did you do all year when you worked so hard on this? Because you didn't talk to me. And if I'm supposed to be your expert, what'd you do? This is dialogue, so I mean, you can talk back to me. What did you do? Talk to Avondale, right? What did you do? I'm asking you not only as the fire chief, but I'm asking somebody that pays taxes in this town, that grew up in this town, built the police station that you're selling. To save money for the town. So what did you do? You weren't talking to us. So who were you talking to?
Well, I think you deserve an answer to that. I think the borough used its best efforts and the team that we had to go out and try to figure out the long-term answer to fire and EMS. I think it's fair and reasonable for us charged to spend the money that 6,000 people donate or have to give to the town to go out and ask the hard questions to try to see if there are alternatives or different ways, better ways to be more efficient with the funds that we spend on behalf of the folks that pay it. I don't think that's the issue. From my perspective, that's healthy and that's good. And I'm sure your board does the same thing with you. I believe it's the emotions. I believe, it's I'm right and you're wrong or you're wrong. I mean, that's what gets in the way more often than not. And putting those to the side to ask the questions openly, objectively in a public forum like this, to me is government, is society working, to be corny. I mean, I've told you and I've told my colleagues that I think we're better off in the commission, and I personally would try to get back in the commission if we could. That's not necessarily, we haven't voted on that. We haven't spoken about that in quite a while, but I think we're better inside using our wiles and to the benefit of the commission and our neighbors as well as our own residents.
Sure. I'm just curious. And I guess I'll just ask you this as a resident. When you fact check Chief Holdsworth's budget and operation, what did they say to you?
Say that again. I'm not sure.
When you fact check Chief Holdsworth's budget this year with outside people to see if you could do it better, what did they bring back to you? Or Rob Moran's, what did another public works director tell you that you should be doing or shouldn't be doing?
I think I hear the question you're asking. And no, there was an outside consultant. But I think there was also, AJ, probably more openness, willingness on both sides to work together to make it work. And frankly, that's past. Let's start with tonight going forward. How do we objectively make it work together for everyone?
This is part of that, Bob, because I did this last year, knowing that it wasn't supposed to happen this year, and you did it again. So what tells me that in 26, I'm not going to be reliving it? You didn't do anything different. Apparently, I'm the only one apparently that needs to go be fact checked and, well, where can we talk and see where we can spend the best money? His budget's more than mine. Rob's more than mine. So as a resident, don't you think you owe me the same fiduciary responsibility? Now, I can tell you right now, they're both underfunded and understaffed. And you're going to create a problem where you're going to lose their employees because they're tired of doing more work with less staffing. just like us. But my job's not to advocate for Billy or Rob.
Personally, as somebody who's new to this whole game, it really came down to the increases that we were seeing in your budget year over year over the time periods that we've been in the commission, the concern of being able to sustain that over time. And so when we looked at the other budgets, they were much more incremental, 3%, 5%, something that feels much more manageable and something that can work in a budget. When we have to have big increases, that's when it's scary because we don't know where the. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
130,000.
I know. I mean, I understand the increases that were needed and the dialogues we met many times behind the scenes. There were commissions set for this. This is why you didn't hear a lot from us. Commission. But we understood where they come from. I think they're just wanting to get it to work collaboratively on setting more long-term budgets that can work in our budgets. Because I know you guys have budgets, we have budgets. I think that's where we just need to work.
So I would say that we don't start from the same place. That's why you see the increases. I don't start from the same place as any of your department heads. Right? We don't all start with knowing, hey, that we're gonna have all the funding there, right? Dude, I spent a lot of time in the police department as a police officer, but I'm not gonna sit here and try to provide critiques on how Chief Holdsworth runs the police department. But we don't start from the same place, right? You just saw the data here. I have to figure out how to bring more money to the table to protect your town than you do. You just get to pass a tax bill. That's it. I don't get to control what you approve. Permits, things like that. I get a say in it, but even if I were to say, stop doing this, which we've said, still happens, right? Those are all, it's just like, well, you guys will figure it out. Oh, you guys are really good at what you do. The problem that we have is instead of sitting down like you told us we were going to do this year, figure this out moving forward, you haven't really put any effort into educating yourself at all. You relied on Matt to bring back information, which didn't happen. Matt's not an expert in fire and EMS. Okay. For 12 months, I waited for you guys to sit down and have the conversations. I've sent reminders to you. I've said, hey.
I never got an email.
Yeah, I put them in the reports, right? And this is the thing, right? Like I said earlier, I'm not. Some of you guys are new, and I understand that. The behavior from the borough towards this fire department is not. I'm trying to, but you need to hear us out first, right? Because it's always like, well, it's water under the bridge. We're just going to move it on. And then it happens again. We're trying to figure out, and I'm going to let them speak, right? Because I get to speak all the time. And it's always, well, here's the aggressive guy. But I'll give you a couple things to leave with before I turn it over. People don't want this fire department to succeed, right? You tried to peel the Kennett Fire Department away from us again this year. Thinking probably because they're too weak to answer on their own, we'll wave a little bit of money in front of them and they'll come. That's insulting to them. Right? All it did was piss me off. It's just this more of the same. But to them, what's that tell? They're weak. Right? I don't understand why that happens. Right? Your vice chair called me a thief and a liar in a meeting a month ago. Because I stole your fire department and I spin these webs. I'm not spinning webs. You have people that sit up there and are not providing correct information. You have council people that are discussing my personal life at their places of employment. But yet I'm still standing here, right? I've lived in this town my whole life. My family has a long history providing service at this town, whether you like them or not. My dad would help me. He instilled a lot of that on me. But I got a little bit of my mom's side of me too. And I'm getting to kind of the end of my rope with this. I'm not going to continue to deal with lies, false information, untrue criticism and accusation. And I can guarantee you that my personal life is off limits to you people. If you want me to dig into yours, I'll return the favor, but that's not how I work. Right? I do not sign up, and I understand that. I'm not accusing, I'm not telling you. I'm just speaking in general. There's going to become a time and a place where you guys are going to have to understand this business is expensive. You got subsidized a lot for a long time and you're playing catch up. You need to reprioritize what you are doing as our elected officials. Your main responsibility is the safety and welfare of your people. It's not only financial, it's everything. Fire, EMS, mandated by law. Public works, you gotta have. Police department don't have to have by law. You're foolish to get rid of it. Those are the things you need to focus on. Once you get all of those set to where they need it, then you can do all the things that are nice. But I can guarantee you when things start to burn down and we go back to having open air drug markets and people getting robbed and shot because we don't have enough, they're not going to have nice things in your town anymore because people don't come where they don't feel safe. Right? The fact that he's got to go get grant funding to get police cars is an absolute joke. It's like a sheriff without a horse. You should be ashamed. That's ridiculous. What happens when he doesn't get the grant funding? What's he going to do? You can only walk so far and so long. But you don't have spent time in his shoes. You've never spent any time in my shoes. Right? Nobody has a problem giving information. I just don't understand, why can't you talk to us? Do you honestly want to know how long it took to get this contract done? Take a guess. It wasn't 6 months because you didn't work with us for 6 months. Do you know what it took? I'm going to shock you. 2 meetings. Right? The reason you got the contract is because of him.
Right. Purposely work.
It was because of him. And I'll tell you why. In the beginning of the year, we had a phone call conversation. Kyle and I don't get along with everything. I know some people think we're besties and you know, the ends there. But we had a conversation in the beginning of the year. And essentially it was, listen, politics and the borough council, this is my words, are one relationship I have to have with town. The other relationship that I have to have is the working relationship to keep people safe. I need to be able to speak with Chief Holdsworth. I need to be able to talk to the manager. I need to be able to talk to Lexi about code issues, safety issues with my people, right? And I can't have the political side damaging that side. So we agreed. We're going to focus on the working side. And the politics is what it is because I have to do it and you have to do it. We spent a year building a relationship to work. That's why it worked. None of you guys have done it. You tried a little bit too, but no one else tried that. That's why we're 2 meetings, 3 hours. For the most part, not all that was really about this. Did I yell at anybody? Did I make anybody cry? No. We sat down, we got to work as professionals. That's what we're supposed to do. That's all I'm asking. That's it. You told me it was going to happen last year. That's what's supposed to happen. I don't have this problem anywhere else. I have some of my counterparts here. They suffer through the same things. I'm going to let them speak for themselves. That's all we want to do is be heard, right? And then we want to figure out what the path forward is because it won't be this process again. Not going to do this fighting again. If we're not going to build a relationship and you're going to get factual, truthful information from me without speaking through a filter, it won't work in 26. You'll be, again, trying to figure out who's going to protect you. And I think we've come to terms. You can't find anybody. This is not a competition where you can go get low bid like asphalt or road salt, right? We're here. You're our town or you're a fire department. Nowhere does this happen like this.
Hey, Jay, I hear you getting an awful lot off your chest and that's fine. But you also have to recognize that there's 7 independent elected officials that are volunteers that are trying to do the very best they can with the tools and the information that they have. We don't always disagree as a group, and we're probably not going to always agree as a group. There's different opinions at different times for different issues. Let's develop the communications that will get us beyond where we are right now. And I hear your frustrations, and I'm sure there's frustrations at this table as well.
Speak on.
But that's done. Let's move on to come up with a better way long term. Maybe we can get back in the commission if the commission will allow us and the council allows us to do that, to build those bridges that have been severed. I mean, what options do we have right now? Right? It's get better or break up permanently.
I don't know, because Bob, some of it is, I don't think you guys appreciate the fact that how much work and frustration it creates for us, the fire department, in trying to figure these deals out with you. I have 5 other municipalities. They're not your biggest fans right now, right? They're not happy. And where's Allison? She can speak to it, right? If they think you're getting something, they're not. Because you guys have gotten a concession in that commission funding for every year it's been here. You're the only ones. Everybody else doesn't like paying it. Nobody likes their taxes going up. Believe me, I don't either. I overpaid for the house so I could live in the borough. Right? But you're the only ones that got the concession. So every year when it comes to this, not only do I got to deal with the stuff coming out of here, I got to go back to the commission meeting and I get it even worse. Right? They're not happy. That's why, you know, the fair share, you'll never pay below what your fair share should be. And don't take this disrespectfully, but like you're paying like just under $800,000 this year. Smart business sense, but why would I jeopardize $4.5 million in revenue for 800 grand? Right? That would be foolish. My boss would have a right to walk in tomorrow and say like, hey, that was your last day. Right? But we don't. We worked, Allison, Kyle, and I worked to get something where at least I could get them to swallow and accept it. I'm telling you, I'm running out of magic tricks.
So I'm Rick Franks, Kenneth Fire Company, Assistant Fire Chief, and I'll try to make it quick because I feel like AJ hit a lot of the points that I was going to talk about. But I just want you guys to, going forward, when you guys talk about these negotiations, is just to remember the political impact and blowback it has on not only our career staff. What?
Yes.
Okay. Not only our career staff, but more importantly, our volunteers, right? So we already talked about how hard it is to get volunteers and retain the volunteers. But when they constantly are hearing that the borough, which they live in and the borough station sits in, is, you know, potentially not on board or whatever may be the rumor out there, you know, it's a lot of work on our part to say, hey, ignore that noise, keep doing what you're doing. Keep showing up multiple hours every week, staffing, training, all that stuff. And you know, the volunteers are the only thing that's saving you guys, you know, a large amount of money right now. So we do everything we can to keep those guys there. And it's every month in our company meeting that we have to, you know, address, hey, we don't know what's going on with the borough. Keep your head down, keep pushing, keep doing the right thing. So you know, we had a training at Westchester Fire Training Center a couple months ago. We talked about it, I think, last month. A lot of the guys thanked Sam for coming out, and were very happy that they saw a elected official, and there was somebody from Kennett Township also. They came out and wanted to learn what we were doing. So they're not just looking at percentages on pieces of paper and, you know, and saying, oh, we don't like that or whatever. Numbers can be spewed any way you want, but coming out and learning what they actually means a lot to the guys, and especially the volunteers.
Hi there, my name is Brad Bowman. I'm the president of Longwood Fire Company. AJ summed a lot of the problems up that we've had. I'm probably what you would call AJ's boss. The things you have to understand is you do these things and go in the public. This is counterproductive because you're trying to save volunteers. And every time you guys degrade people and make comments, we lose volunteers and you're not getting them back. So you have to understand when you have these meetings, pretty soon there'll be no volunteers. There'll be career firefighters. You think your costs are going up now? Wait until that day comes, because they're going to go through the roof. You can see it everywhere. You know, and you have to treat people like people. And I know you might have a thing against Longwood Fire Company or against Kennett Fire Company or against Pomerlin Fire Company, against the commission. But the whole thing is, in order for this to survive and in order for you to save your costs, you have to do whatever you can to keep the volunteers. And I was here at the last year when we had a meeting, and we talked about things and things were going to get better. And I thought they were for a while, but then it comes back to the same thing with the budget time. And we have to sit here and go through this every year. And this constant, every year, beating on people. I mean, just as Ricky said, it's hard on the volunteers. It's hard for a person to tell them, hey, yeah, come on up here, spend a night here for 2 nights a week, no cost, and get degraded by the community around you. You can't do that. It can't happen. It can't continue happening this way. So, you know, I don't want to say it, and you know, I don't want it to happen, but if it continues, you're really going to have some real hard decisions to make in the near future. And so will the commission, and so will the fire companies. I truly do hope it doesn't come to that, but we can't continue the way we are. So all we're asking is that you try to work with us, and we'll try to work with you, and we can make this thing work. You know, and if we can, we're going to have a good organization, and it's going to be a great community like that. But if it doesn't, it's just going to get harder and harder. So that's the things you have to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Guys, I hope you realize, and I'm speaking to the folks in blue, that the borough very, very much appreciates the service and the risk that you put yourselves at every single time you respond to a call, or when you dispatch people to make a call. That is, please, no, that is not the issue, nor has it ever been the issue. The fact that you do what you do for us is noble and very much appreciated, and the quality of the service has never been an issue. We have a budget issue, and it's how do we work together openly, objectively, to get through and beyond the emotions and the history that we've had with you. You've got new people coming in these positions in every municipality every couple of years. Let's move on to do something that works for both the folks that we serve. There has to be compromise, like any good arrangement, right? Like you did this year, together working to get the budgets down and allowing us to put capital improvement grants to work, which wins for both of us. We don't have to charge, levy more taxes, and we get better equipment for you guys to help us out in the back end of it. It's got to be based on trust, and the trust is not there, or has not been there. It has to be there.
So what's your path forward?
My path forward is as hard as it is.
You want, what would make you feel good? Like what?
I'm not a.
I certainly think, first of all, that getting a 2-year contract is good. I think that is an improvement. I think that is a helpful path forward. Do you agree? Do you like the 2-year contract?
I do and I don't. So
Okay.
here's the problem. The environment in which we're operating in right now is changing so fast and so much. I would love to tell you what it's going to cost me in 5 years. And there are some things we're doing right now to try to maybe trend some of that. But I can't trend what my volunteer staff is going to be like in 3 years, which is going to dictate what my payroll turns into, because I might need to hire 25 more people, or, the call volume stuff, right? We're trying to get trends on the call volume. I can tell you right now, and I've said this before, but like if NVF ends up being mostly a affordable housing community, like you'll probably break the system. Also dumping another 1,200 people in town is a dynamic that I don't know that we've quite figured out yet. But we're not even operating at what minimum staffing should be right now. And I think, the fire department does a pretty good job compromising by subsidizing you guys every year. I think the path.
Like a population growth versus your budget. How to maintain it, population.
Yeah, we can, but that's not the only driving factor, right? So when you bring more events into town, that generates more things, right? It's not just static population. we had to change how we addressed the holiday parade this year just because of the amount of people that required additional resources from the fire department to help the police department be able to focus on some of the other areas, mainly because, and I'm not speaking for it, but staffing, right? I mean, just not enough cops.
The borough makes like no money on all.
I didn't make any, I mean, you're government, you're not supposed to make money, right? So like, correct that, so the people should pay for it. That's essentially what it is. The people should pay for it. Things are great.
I don't think we're going to come up with the
Correct.
solution.
So
tonight.
here's what I'll say.
It's
This
the
is,
openness.
it's how are you communicating? And with who? Right, Kyle and I work a lot all together on a lot of the business stuff, but I have to have a relationship with council. Right, and where it has to be, we're not always going to agree, and I'm not asking you to be yes men or women or bobbleheads, but who? You've already expressed interest. We're going to reach out and try to, get you the answers that you need.
Committees that do the work on an annual basis. I'll be thinking about this conversation and forming those committees.
We have to talk, right? That's the biggest thing, is talking.
Great thing is we are
Yeah.
right now, right here.
Yeah, I don't want it to come to this, right? I want to have conversations. I mean, you're my neighbor, you live up the street a couple blocks, like, we should be able to have these conversations. You have a job to do and I have a job to do. And I think understanding that, you need to look at the fire department in maybe a little bit of a different lens. You can't apply your business practice to the fire department and think that model is going to work. And that's educational stuff. And I mean, Allison will tell you that I don't think we've ever said we weren't in the business to educate elected officials. We spend an enormous amount of time. I just had half of my staff in East Marlboro tonight for a similar topic, but different reason. But you're not going to learn in 2 hours. That's the one thing I want you to understand. It's going to require constant attention to it. And if you're willing to put the effort into that, the fire department's willing to educate. Yeah, I mean, to start. Good. Anyone else? Okay.
We've cleared or helped to clear the air. There's a lot of education on both sides, right? The best thing is probably to hop in each other's shoes and walk around for a little while to understand the difficulties and the challenges. And it's openness, the trust that has to be the answer. We won't always like the decisions, but if we could be open about it and share it, then we can move on with the next issue. Thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor. It was not a ton of fun sitting up here. Not that it was intended to. We hear you loud and clear, and please know how much we value the role you play for the safety of the folks that depend on you to show up when that alarm goes off. That's very sincere from all of us. Santa will be coming to town, Tinseltown, December 19th, Daniel, right? So please see Santa in town. And I think the Kennett Fire Company still runs trucks around town. Last year you guys did. So you'll see Santa on the trucks as well. And if you haven't made a donation to the Kennett Fire Company, please consider that. If you haven't signed up for the ambulance service, what's it called? Subscribe to an ambulance. Those sorts of little things here and there certainly help an awful lot. Thanks for your time, your tolerance, your patience, your openness to hear each other out. I wish on behalf of the council and the mayor you a wonderful Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas. I hope you have a lovely holiday with your family. Council, no meeting on Wednesday. We're adjourned. Thank you.